Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. Yesterday, the Board of Selectmen received a letter dated April 25th, 2018 from the Attorney General's office stating that as a result of a complaint filed by Catherine Adams, the Division of Open Government had found that the board violated the open meeting law by failing to make its November 9th, 2017 meeting audible to the audience and by failing to post an anticipated topic on its November 9th, 2017 meeting notice. The Office of the Division of Open Government ordered the board's immediate and future compliance with the law's requirements. Additionally, the Division of Open Government ordered the board members to review the Attorney General's open meeting law training and to certify to the Attorney General's office within 30 days that it has complied with that order. The Attorney General's office considers the complaint addressed by this determination and to be resolved. As we receive this communication after tonight's agenda was posted, we will add this topic to next week's agenda and discuss it at that time. Is there any other public comment from the board?
Oh, I wanted to thank everyone for coming out to the Earth Day event at Wallace Park. I thought it was very cute, and it was, thank God, the weather was lovely, and there was a nice turnout. Mm-hmm. And the flowers look beautiful out in the little common area. Who did that now?
Turkey Hill Garden.
Turkey Hill Garden Club?
Yeah.
It's lovely, really is.
It's nice to see flowers instead of
Yes,
snow.
and the birds are chirping like crazy. It's yahoo! I think maybe it's spring. Maybe.
Okay, then any public comment from the public? Please.
Tom Alonzo, 284 Lancaster Avenue. Just reminding people that this Thursday, May 3rd, at 7 p.m. at the Lunenburg Middle High School, they will have the Board of Selectmen candidates debate. Doors will be open at 6:30, and it is free to the public. It is being recorded by Lunenburg Public Access for broadcast at a later date because we want people to attend. It'll be moderated by Town Moderator Tim Murphy, and it is sponsored by the Lunenburg Ledger. So we hope everyone can come out and get a good listen to all the candidates and the issues facing the town and the townspeople.
Now, I just had one question for you. I know that there will be 3x5 cards that you can write questions on. Do you get them when you come in? Or?
Yes, you get them, and you'll get writing implements when you get in, and you'll get instructions about what kind of questions, how the question should be phrased, so that they'll all be discussed then, and those questions will be collected from the audience and brought up to the moderator, who will, choose from those to make sure there's no repeats and to make sure that, that every question is available to be answered by everybody, so we don't get pointed questions to any one particular candidate. So it's about subjects, not about people.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I don't want to scare you. I don't intend to make a presentation. I just have something up here for the people at home to look at instead of me, hopefully. It'll be more interesting. I'm before you tonight to update you and the community, hopefully, out there on the efforts to add one additional EMS staff to the fire department budget so that we could achieve 24/7 fully staffed emergency coverage. If needed, I plan to bring a motion to the floor at town meeting to give the community the information and the opportunity to make this happen now through an amendment to the proposed FY19 budget this Saturday. I have met with the town manager, finance director, and both chiefs, and twice with the finance committee in an attempt to do this very openly, get all issues and concerns satisfied and surfaced, and confirm that the data and information that I plan to present at town meeting is complete and accurate. The need is clear. Our aging population is growing quickly, and all of our residents and loved ones can benefit from this action. Currently, we do not have staff at the station from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sunday through Friday morning at 6 a.m. Based on 2016 actual call data, as many as 1/3 of the calls on weekdays occurred during unstaffed hours. Overall, entire time week, 22% of all calls occur when the station is not staffed. Those are not good averages. It's likely that during these unstaffed periods, it could take 6 to 10 minutes longer for the ambulance to arrive. Statistically, this can result in a 50% reduction in survival per the chief's records and data. The town manager has one additional police officer and one fire person in the current proposed budget, which is great, and I thank you for that. This is a great start, but it will not get us to 24/7. It will, however, get us very, very close. One more EMS staff would get us there now. The town manager and both chiefs have also have a long-range plan for additional safety staffing that includes one police officer and one more fire person next year as well. This would get us to 24/7 coverage, but there is no need to wait. There will likely be someone whose life will be forever changed for the better or for the worse, depending on your recommendations and the residents' vote at town meeting. We have a unique opportunity and can afford 24/7 coverage in this year's budget without taking any funds away from any other departments. The reason is that after the initial balanced budget was prepared in February, our Monte Tech assessment was reduced by $84,000 from what was planned. Unfortunately, this has not been applied to this serious need for the town, but instead to reduce the loan for the fire truck. In fairness to the town manager, it was not clear at that time what the cost impact of this additional person would be, or that it would result in 24/7 coverage. Reallocation of this funding is the goal of my proposed budget amendment. We now know it will only cost $60,000, including indirect costs, to pull this additional person in by 1 year from the next year plan. And it will allow 24/7 coverage. This will not add to the budget or tax rate, nor will it violate any financial policies. It will also not affect the purchase of the proposed ladder truck. It will only redirect available funds to cover this service for the interim year. Unless you or the town manager modify the current capital and budget proposal on town floor, I plan to make a motion at town meeting to adjust the budget line items to cover the cost of accelerating what was a good plan to make it even better, and look forward to support from the residents. Of course, the support of the BOS and the town manager would go a long way to helping this goal. Seizing the initiative would be an even stronger message for you to send to the residents of your desire to provide this service now. I would appreciate your feedback on your current positions and any concerns you may have so that they can be addressed tonight or during the debate on Saturday. If you do not feel you can support this life-saving idea at this time, it would be helpful to me and the residents watching to understand why not and what it might take to get you on board. I thank you for your time, and I hope you can support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Luck has asked for feedback. However, this item is not on our agenda, so I don't think that we can discuss it as a board. And that's a question to you and to the town manager.
I would suggest that while normally I would agree with you, the number 2 under old business allows us to discuss annual town meeting articles and votes may be taken. So we could stretch the interpretation of that to have a
All right, I don't have that on my agenda.
Did we not get that on the?
Yeah, it's under.
Discussion on annual town
Oh,
meeting under old
okay,
business.
okay, improve public satisfaction. Okay, I see it under old
And it
business.
was
Okay.
it was my intention to use that agenda item to talk about Articles 27 and 28, which we didn't specifically point out.
Okay,
So I could interpret
General
that
enough.
we could have a discussion on this if we choose to.
okay.
It came up during.
And the article, this would relate to would be the budget article.
And the capital article.
Right,
Okay, so we'll table that discussion till we get to there on the agenda?
that'd be fine.
Okay.
Okay, but I think we have the
Okay,
the
Opportunity.
ability
Okay.
to do that if we
okay,
choose to.
all right, thank you.
Any other public comment from the public? Okay. Then our appointments this evening are, again, I should set the stage. Normally, the Board of Selectmen review upcoming articles and make a recommendation, either prior to and print in the warrant or prior to the town meeting. Occasionally, we have to wait till town meeting to see the presentation to make a recommendation on whether we believe the town should support articles or not. There were 4 articles that were put on the, well, there were 3 articles that were put on the warrant by citizen petition, and there was 1 article that required some further information from the Sewer Commission, and we asked for them to be discussed tonight so that we could be better prepared to make such recommendations. The first 2, however, have to do with Hickory Hills. And just to refresh everybody's memory, we made a decision that because 3 of our board members are residents of Hickory Hills, we felt to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest, it would be inappropriate for the board, as a board, to make a recommendation on those 2 warrant articles. However, we didn't want to deprive the petitioners with the opportunity to discuss it in a forum like this and give the public a chance to look at them prior to town meeting. So we've invited Hickory Hills to come and present 2, and then the petitioner on the Article 26 to come, and then the Sewer Commission we asked to give us some further information around the Article 25 that has to do with adding to the sewer service area map. So our 4 appointments this evening are in that regard, and we'll start with the Hickory Hills landowners on Article 21, which is the perpetual easement along and upon portions of town-owned property.
Do you need an attachment?
Yeah, Steve, she has an adapter. Heather has an adapter.
My name is Steve Douglas, 24 Wintergreen Court, and I'm here to represent the Dam Committee. John Fortune, the chairman, couldn't make it tonight, and he asked me to stand in.
Great.
I guess I don't know how to do this.
Do you have it on a thumb drive? I don't think
I
it's,
have it on a thumb drive. They have it. I have 1 hard copy also.
You don't have enough. Oops. No, not the right size.
Nothing.
Okay.
I can show it to you, and they have it on the TV.
I think we have it in our packet.
do we have it in our packet? It's just the
Yeah.
people in the audience don't have an
Right,
opportunity
yeah.
to see it.
I can leave it this way.
Well done.
And I do believe that public access has it, is that correct? So the people
Yes.
at home are seeing it?
They have
Okay,
it, yes, they
fine.
do.
Doesn't encourage people to come, though.
Yeah,
They have to have a little TV in front of
put
them.
it on hers.
Shall I wait? or-
Where is it on ours? What topic is it?
Hopefully it's the. Okay. Thanks. Is it one of these files? Here. It's tricky.
That's it. Okay.
Heather, it's not on the screen. There we go.
Great.
Okay. So the presentation's on the back screen. As you know, Hickory Hills is a 315-acre man-made lake. Has a billion gallons of water in it. We have an earthen dam, 1,750 feet long, that runs along Townsend Harbor Road. There's a concrete section in the center of the dam, which is 150 feet long. Recently, the state increased the requirements for dam projects in the state. Previously, it was a half probable maximum flood, which equates to 15.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. And they increased that requirement to 500-year flood requirement. Excuse me, we presently meet the 11.69 inches in 24 hours, which is half the probable maximum. So to go from 11.69 to 15.5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, we have to increase the robustness of the dam. We contracted with Ty and Bond, who looked at alternative ways for us to achieve that increased safety of the dam. And we looked at the cost effectiveness of the spillway, crest gate, and overtopping. And it turns out that overtopping of the earthen portion of the dam is the most cost effective way to provide that enhanced safety for the dam. So overtopping is a egg crate kind of plastic mesh that goes over the top of the dam. And they fill that with earth, plant grass on top of it, and that holds down the top surface so if water rushes over it, it doesn't wash away the berm, wash away the dam. So it provides that extra level of protection that's required by the state. So we have a plan in place to have this installed if we get approval from the town, hopefully later this year. That's our plan. So the town involvement is that the portion of the dam, since we run right alongside Townsend Harbor Road, the portion of the dam itself is included in the easement from the town from the road alongside of it. So we are going to be funding the project ourselves, so there's no financial liability from the town. And we're requesting that the Lunenburg residents vote yes to allow the dam improvements on the road easement to meet the state requirements. That's the reason we're on in the articles for the town meeting. So there's 3 maps here of the property, and you see the lake at the top and the road in the middle, and the red line is the easement that we're talking about. So you can see there's property between the red line and the road, which is part of the dam, which is areas we'll need to put the overtopping on. In the future, we will be putting concrete along the edge of the road or at the bottom of the slope to protect that interface between the road surface and the overtopping. We will be putting concrete at different places where there's utility poles. So there's some work we'd be doing in that easement area. So that red line just runs along the road the full length. And the total project is about 1,900 feet long. So to date, Time Bond engineering firm has completed the design. The Mass Office of Dam Safety has approved the plans in the project. DEP has approved the plans in the project. And the Lunenburg Conservation Commission has approved the plans in the project. We're now asking that the residents vote to approve the project so that we can do the work on the easement. And then immediately following that, we'll be issuing RFQs to qualified construction contractors. We'll select the contractor, and then we hope to start this fall. So basically the summary is that the state is requiring us to enhance the safety of the dam, and our plan is to do that using an overtopping system that's recommended by Time Bond. And the project's been approved already by Dam Safety, DEP, and the Conservation Commission. And we'll be funding the project ourselves, so there's no funds required at all from the town. And we're just asking that the Lunenburg residents vote yes so that we can work in that easement. Are there any questions?
I have one. The cement berm, is it along the road or along the east end of the earth? Where is that?
It's at the base. It's on the slope. It's not on the road. It's on where the slope abuts the road surface.
Sort of where the slope levels off to hit
Yes.
regular ground. There'll be a berm
Right.
installed right there. So it'll be a distance off the road in most cases?
It'll abut
It
the
extends
road.
3 feet up the
It'll abut the
It'll
road?
abut the road.
abuts the road. It's to protect washing out underneath the road if the water comes over the top.
So along the whole way, it'll abut the road?
Yes.
And we have talked with, actually, that's not true. There's an area past the dam that has a wetland area, and the overtopping project won't extend all the way to the roadway. But the majority of it, yes, will abut the road, and we have been in communication with Jack Roddiquins of DPW to review the plans. He's walked the site, and he's familiar with the project. But yes, the concrete area in most places will abut the roadway.
Okay, thank you.
So both Jack and the Conservation Commission have seen this
Yes.
and have not raised any significant concerns?
Correct. One thing I do want to add, if I may, and that is that one of the reasons that we are required to improve the safety of the dam is because the Hickory Hills Dam is considered a high hazard dam. And the reason for that is because in the event of a catastrophic failure, the potential loss of life for Lunenburg residents as well as Shirley residents is there. So that's why we are mandated to meet this 1/2 PMF.
Could you explain the repercussions if it was not passed at town meeting to authorize the easement?
If it wasn't passed, we wouldn't be able to proceed with the project. We would be we would not be in compliance with the state mandates to improve the dam, and it would jeopardize downstream residents as long as it's not protected for that 1/2 PMF.
Which is why I mentioned the high hazard potential. You know, Hickory Hills is a private lake and is being paid for with private funds. We have explored many other options and reviewed those with the Conservation Commission. This is the best option. It is the least invasive and most cost-effective, and will provide the level of protection needed for downstream residents. And without these improvements, there is, as I said, it is a high hazard dam and there is a potential safety risk.
And ultimately, could the state order the water to be drawn down to make it safe?
Absolutely.
So that would be the thing that we wouldn't want to have happen. I assume the terms of the easement will be reviewed by town council. It wouldn't be done yet, I'm
Town
assuming.
council has been working on this with Hickory Hills Land Associations to make sure, because it's ultimately town's language that will need to be in the easement or acceptable to the town.
And that was actually voted on by the board to authorize town council to work on that.
Lake Shirley Dam, which is owned by the town, doesn't have the same overtopping issues?
I don't know whether or not it meets the 1/2 PMF, to be honest with you. That would be a good question for this board to know. I don't know. We were informed by the Department of Dam Safety that we didn't, during our inspections, our inspector identified that we did not meet the 1/2 PMF. And actually, we had a hydraulic study to determine if we did, and determined that we did not.
I seem to remember reading the last report that we're okay. Would probably be good to revisit that. We regularly bring that up. I've got no questions. I'm impressed with the work that the engineers and the homeowners, the Hickory Hills Landowners Association has been doing to get all the information together and working with the town departments that you legally had to with conservation, but also to work with DPW director to make sure that you don't go down too far that they'd be raising an issue. So I will, while we won't be taking a vote here, I'll be supporting this article at town meeting.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, there's another Hickory Hills item, or Mr. Douglas, are you going to address that, or you are? Okay.
I'm back up on that one.
Okay, fair enough.
Carol Hatch, 41 Hilltop Lane. I'm the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Hickory Hills Landowners Incorporated. And we, as a board, voted last night that we'd like to pass over Article 23.
So it's your intent on Saturday then to make that motion?
To make that motion, yes.
And just...
We have new information and we need to do further research.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Somebody here from the Sewer Commission to talk about Article 25.
Hi, Joe Anderson, Chairman of the Sewer Commission. I'm going to let Carl take the reins. He did a lot of work on this. I just wanted to clarify for the public and everybody that we didn't actually post a meeting. So it says Sewer Commission on the agenda. There's probably a quorum of sewer commissioners here, but we're not going to deliberate or anything like that or do anything. So he's just going to give the facts, show the maps, just to clarify the article, and that'll be it. So just want to make that clear. All right.
You unscrew. Yeah.
It's better than twisting the cords together like a...
That's true.
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I'm mostly here to answer whatever questions you might have on this article. But just to state the basics, basically what this article is doing is putting Tilton Ave into the sewer service area. And I think that comes up. Want to come up?
Yep, there it goes, Carl.
Oh, thank you. I almost touched something. Okay.
Well, we just see a car, though.
Even better. Even better.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. So Tilton Ave is that little island in the middle of that dark brown sea. The dark brown sea is areas in Lunenburg that's already sewered. And the light green around the outer perimeter is what we call Study Area 4, and it's an area along with Tilton Ave that was included in a study area. Study Area 4, all of that green was put into the sewer service area because it was deemed an area of needs by definition of a very complex schedule that our engineering firm went through for us, and Paula was on the board with myself at that time. And I think the next thing, and then I probably can get right to any questions you have. This is the page of the accumulation of the needs evaluation. So all of the areas in town were scored, and it was a fairly complex scoring. There were a number of parameters. Oops, I just went right by it. All of these parameters were scored, including things like, soils and drainage. The lot sizes was taken into account. The water resource protection, so the environmental sensitivity things, depth to water table, and regulated setbacks. So those kind of things were taken in, all added up and scored, and Area 4 was determined to be an area of needs. Unfortunately for Tilton Ave, during the discussion, there was a workshop by the Sewer Commission, and there were some comments in the workshop that perhaps Tilton Ave didn't need to be sewered, and the things that were cited in the literature, and I think you have the documents, was that there was a comment about some prior.
Pulled Article 25 in the package.
Should be a thing that looks like this. I think that was sent to you.
Okay, thank you.
So during the workshop of the Sewer Commission, there were some comments made and fed back to the engineering firm that the area had good gravel soil, that there was a prior survey of the residents, and the residents didn't want sewer. We can't find that survey. It's sort of I don't know, just word of mouth survey. We don't know who got surveyed, what the question was. And there was also a reference to the fact that we had limited capacity, which was true at that time. We've since fixed that with a new IMA with Fitchburg, so we have plenty of capacity. The main issues that the current Sewer Commission had when reviewing all this documentation was survey, what the residents wanted was never a part of the needs criteria. It was basically, does the area need sewer or not? Is there a needs there? The survey was never verified or had any, information behind it that we could question. And quite frankly, the soil comment of the commission contradicted the engineering survey, which you see here, because as you can imagine, red indicates not a good situation, yellow and then goes over to green. And you can see from this photograph there really isn't much difference between the green areas out around that were put in the sewer service area and Tilton Ave. And as I say, the capacity should not have been an issue of need. It was an area of capacity, and that's been resolved, which is a good reason it wouldn't have been a criteria, because those things can be changed, whereas soils can't be. The other very relevant thing to that area that created that very dark, you see along this line here, a very dark red. These people on that side of the street have a particular issue because they're, I think it's Pearl Brook, runs right behind, why isn't this thing moving up for me? Pearl Brook runs right behind those houses. So, and it's a perennial stream, which means there's a 200-foot setback for doing things there. So it's a very ecologically sensitive area behind those houses, which again would drive you to, septics are not necessarily the best solution. So the current Sewer Commission reviewed all of these facts and decided that it was it should be in the sewer service area, that the people should have access. I will comment that there was some, maybe some confusion. We had two articles. We were preparing in case the residents wanted to actually install sewer, so we had taken the survey. The survey came back very quickly. It was the best, response we ever got. And the 2/3 requirement was not met. So we've removed that article from the town meeting. So we have no plans, the residents have no plans of sewering this area, but it doesn't mean that the people on that street shouldn't be in the sewer service area and at some point in the future could have access. The fact that we're not going to do a betterment doesn't mean that someone on that street couldn't decide to do a private extension. If they're really in trouble, and they could be with that brook back there, they could decide that it's more in their interest to do a private extension. Without being in the sewer service area, they wouldn't have that option. So we would be really creating some hardship if it wasn't in the sewer service area. So long story short, there's no reason it should have been treated different than the rest of Area 4, which is in the sewer service area, and that we shouldn't give those people or the next owners of those property the opportunity to connect to sewer if they so choose. I'll take whatever questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, the one question that I have is looking at the tier analysis. I'm looking at the map and quite frankly don't understand it.
Okay.
I'm looking at Tilton Avenue and I see some red on the outskirts and then I see green, but I don't know what the colors mean. I see a guide that says 35 is red and
Yes.
3 is green.
Yeah, so, great question, Paula, because I wasn't quite clear either, because the 3 to 35 threw me, because everything else was like 0 to 3, 0 to 10.
Yeah.
What that is it's the addition of all of these scores. So,
On the map itself, we have a copy of the map. I don't know if
Yep.
you have it in your presentation. What is,
Could you show
okay,
it?
what does the green color mean versus the red color?
well, the green is the 3 end of the spectrum.
Which is good or
Which is
bad?
good, which is good. So,
Okay.
green is good, red is bad.
Okay.
And all in between, which is why, and the way I can easily remember that on this map here is the red along the left is due to Pearl Brook. That's floodplain.
Okay, but the majority of it is green, if I'm...
Yes, yeah, around the edges are red, but the middle is green. If you look above where it says study area 4,
Yeah,
that is more green.
majority is green.
That's more
Yeah.
green than this thing is, and that's in the sewer service area. The other concern that was broached was just, and I mentioned there, lot size was a factor. As you can see, these are all very small lots, so
Well, I would say 4 of them aren't. I would say 6 of them potentially are.
I don't think any of them are an acre.
Yeah, without that, I mean, just looking at the layout of the lots, the ones on the end of the street, on the end of the dead end look larger than the
Yes.
ones, the front of the street.
Yes.
But I have no way to judge that.
Yeah,
I don't know the size.
I had a lift somewhere, but
Yeah,
I don't think
know
any
the
of them are
size
over an
of the
acre.
lots.
I'm sorry, Jamie, I didn't mean
No,
to.
I remember that one of the reasons that we didn't take a vote to recommend or not recommend when you presented originally was some potential confusion on the fact that the 2/3 wasn't met, et cetera. Just to clarify, if this article were to pass at town meeting, it doesn't mean that the people that voted against it at this point in time would get a betterment. It just means that this area would be eligible if at some point in the future they voted for it.
Yes,
Is
right.
that a correct
Yes, and
statement?
that's why we pulled the betterment article out, because there will be no betterment on this based on that vote.
So this just puts the area into the sewer, your CWMP, which is your Bible,
Yes,
and if at some point in the future they vote for it or want a private system, it would be eligible for one. Is that
exactly,
correct?
exactly correct. Thank you for clarifying that.
So I have a couple, well, one comment that relates to Crossroad, Northfield, Oak Ave, and the Unitil site. So the Unitil site on Route 13, I believe, is the last time the town voted to add something to a sewer service area.
Correct.
And that was done as a result of the proponent having Title V test pits done to prove that it could not sustain septic systems. So therefore, that was the reason why the Sewer Commission moved ahead.
Yes,
On Oak Ave and Northfield Road, the corner lot there, half of the development of those lots are on sewer and half are on septic, because the Sewer Commission stated to the proponent, you have to show to us that septic systems wouldn't work. They chose not to come back because septic systems could work.
right.
And then there was an extension on Cross Road when you were doing the Cross, Pine Grove, Pratt work. Since then, there's been somebody who's wanted to extend further, and they were required to have a test done.
Yes.
But the property owners here are not having the requirement to show that you can't do septic systems on these properties. And that concerns me to say to the other people, you can't do it, but these people can, because we didn't include it originally, and for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into the historical of what the land is. I would be fine if there was some test that the Board of Health inspected that said, we can't put conventional septic systems on these properties, and as a result, this should be added to the sewer. So it's consistent with any property owner having the rights. And I'll go back to when sewer first came in town, there were some in town that said we were going to sewer the entire town.
Right.
And it started. And then the town got upset because we were going to sewer the entire town. What was the implication? So then we came up with this process by which we were going to extend it only based on where it was absolutely required.
Right.
And I'm not seeing that at the
Right.
moment.
And
I agree, and I applaud consistency, because it's one of the things I think is critical in boards. And you are absolutely right there. We've held a line pretty hard for somewhere that was not in the sewer service area, that they needed to prove it would not support septic. This one is a little different in my mind, because this one, I think, I hope Paula doesn't take this personally, but I think I say it because I was on the board that made this decision. I think the board acted in error at that time. So I see this more as correcting a decision that was made based on the wrong reasons. The decision was made based on capacity availability, which should not have ever come into the equation. It was based on a survey that was, I don't know, was actually done, to be quite frank, because we can't find any record of a survey. So it was based on reasons outside of the criteria for all of the other needs area assessments. So I think there was a potential wrong done to the people on this particular street, which is the only reason that I sleep at night, with the inconsistency that you speak of, which I think is well stated. The only other thing I would offer, and I don't, we did not go again to the Board of Health, but in a letter from the Board of Health, the Board of Health data for Lower Mass Ave, specifically including Tilton Ave, referred to it as the second highest failure rate among all study areas for septic systems.
what was that? Can you?
This was, if you look back at the SAE consultants, who was one of the consultants even before Wright Pierce, they presented data for Lower Mass Ave, number 1, which is this area, specifically including Tilton Ave as, quote, the second highest failure rate among study areas. And they were talking about septic systems.
And that was at the time the plan was done?
That was in October 11, 2005.
Okay.
So it actually predated the Wright Pierce study.
And I would be interested to see from the Board of Health, what the status of those systems are now. And I'd note that not only did not 2/3 support a betterment, it wasn't even majority who supported it. So I would be interested to find out when the people voted against the sewer, even though this doesn't do a betterment, they may have thought they stopped sewer completely. So I'd be interested for a town meeting to know what the residents understand this article to be.
Yeah, fair
Because
enough.
I think that's part of trying to reach out to the public, is that if you voted against something you thought it was, and then later on it's there, something else could change, and I thought I stopped it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. I think the other side of that coin is to make it clear to them that this doesn't in any way commit them to having sewer at any point in the future. That they'll always have the vote to say no, and if that's the way it is. What's happened in a lot of places, and why we're not sewering more of the areas that can be sewered is, as time goes on and the system fails here and the system fails there, people have no choice but to upgrade it. They can't get the whole area sewered. So the longer time goes on, the harder it is for anybody to get it, because their neighbors have a system already. So it puts some people in a very difficult situation.
Of course, goes against
that's the
your
way it works.
argument, because if they have a system that meets the standard, then we don't need sewer.
That's what I was
Yes,
just going
yes,
to say,
yeah.
is if they've been able to replace those systems in compliance with Title V,
Right.
they are able to support on-site systems.
Yes,
And that was
exactly.
one of the goals of the comprehensive wastewater management plan, was to identify areas that were unable to support. And if they have been upgrades, and that's the data that I would need to determine how I will vote on this, is how many of those systems have failed on Tilton Avenue. And there's not a lot of properties, so it's not an intensive task to identify, versus how many have been upgraded and in compliance.
Yeah.
And it might be that half of the street would meet the requirements of not being able to meet the standards, and the other half could. So I just want to, I'm
It's
concerned about the
complicated.
people who've had to install septic systems before because they were not given this opportunity, and this one is not the same, following the same rules.
Understood.
Now, I understand that the sewer commission is not convened. But what would happen between now and town meeting that would allow you people to make a recommendation one way or the other?
I would need the data on the septic systems on Tilton Avenue.
And is that something that can be done by town meeting? I mean, is that something that could be part of the presentation at town meeting?
I'm sure.
So it's the
Yeah, 'cause I-
the
'cause I-
data that
I-
they would have at the Board of Health would give the answer to what has happened as far as failed. It wouldn't give the data
And
about whether
upgrades.
the system could support something unless
Exactly.
they have a record of a perk test that was done.
Right, but it would identify the amount of failures on the property, and I think there's only,
It's 10 places,
It's
there's 10
properties.
residences.
So of those 10 properties, how many have failed Title V? And how many of them have upgraded systems that are in compliance with Title V? And therefore, that area that to me would weigh into whether or not that area is able to support on-site septic.
So we will continue to withhold our recommendation until town meeting?
I'm not ready to make a recommendation.
And I'd also try to have as much public outreach to the residents on the streets so they know what's going on.
Yep, yeah. And I'm pretty sure we have, I was trying to remember, I remember when we were looking at this that we did look at some Board of Health data, so I think that's pretty readily available. Again, to your point, it won't say whether you could do it again, but it'll say what the failure rate is and so forth.
It'll
which-
identify the failure rate, and if there have been upgrades, in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I can say
then
for
it
sure
will
there
tell you.
have been.
And additionally, I worked for the Board of Health for many, many years. If there is information on the septic system, even some of the old systems, we have the perk rate and the groundwater rate. So,
Okay. Good, fair enough.
Thank you.
Sure.
Go.
So it sounds like the main reason we can't do a recommendation is because you want to see the septic systems, right? That they
can the area support on-site septic?
so the entire resident, we know of at least one that
Those 10.
most likely cannot. And that kind of opened this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. So we know of one that probably can't. So if this doesn't go into the service area, what is that resident supposed to do if you don't?
You could certainly do a one-lot extension that's saying this is, or the next door neighbor, whatever the lots that don't meet the standard of a septic
So if
system.
we know of at least two that said yes, they wanted to, or because of this issue. If one's here and one's at the top of the street, how do you get a?
All we're saying is that the sewer systems should be put in where septic systems cannot.
What's the
And with-
reason for saying that you don't want to recommend it other than that? I mean, why not give the
That's
residents
the
the
whole
option?
basis of the comprehensive.
I will tell you, as someone who served as a sewer commissioner, who also worked for the Board of Health, and is also very concerned about aquatic ecology, one of my concerns with extending sewer in areas that do not need it is there is an impact to groundwater. There is an impact to aquatic environment, and that's unquestionable.
So is that why it was left off originally?
When Title V, let me just finish. When Title V was initially adopted, it was a requirement that all properties, if sewer was available, would connect. The state then rethought its mindset and determined that that wasn't a good idea because exporting water and not recharging it to the ground was actually causing ecological problems. So Title V was then revised to say that if on-site septic could be supported, it could be installed even if sewer were available. When the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan was adopted, it was to identify areas that could not support on-site septic, and those were determined to be areas of need, and they were included in the sewer plan. Additionally, the other aspect of sewer, and it's not relative to this particular argument, but certainly is to other areas of town, is that sewer has unintended consequences, and we've seen that in the Whalum area. We've seen the incredibly dense development, and that is due because of the presence of sewer. If on-site septic were utilized, we wouldn't see that kind of density because frankly, septic systems couldn't support it. So for any action, there is a reaction. And making a decision on Tilton Avenue that could potentially support sewer and allowing sewer to be extended could have ramifications in other areas that could support on-site septic, and we're expanding it simply because we want to expand it.
Well, it's not that we want to. It is a need area. It has more need than the areas surrounding it.
Well, I'm not seeing that, frankly.
You saw the map.
I saw.
Clearly showed that the other areas did not need it as much as Tilton Ave.
Well, I disagree with you. So I would need more data on Tilton Avenue. Additionally, the fact that the majority of the residents do not want sewer.
They don't want a
have expressed-
betterment. They didn't say they didn't want sewer. They said they didn't want to pay for a betterment.
Well, the only way you can extend sewer is with a betterment.
No, if we're talking about, now we're just talking about adding it in case people wanted private extensions. So
Well,
it's different. It's not the same thing.
If I could, get back into this stuff to fight this a little bit, because I hear a lot of different things. Again, I think there was a bad decision made when the comprehensive waste plan was put in place. And this area was treated and analyzed to criteria that no other area was. When you say we did the needs assessment, it's true. And this area, and Tilton Ave, meets the needs criteria. This is the score.
Oh, that's your car.
You get the car again.
A beautiful thing.
It is.
Tilton Ave goes up the middle, there's Chapdelaines on the right.
Unfortunately, people at home aren't getting to see that. This is the scoring of the Area 4 and Tilton Ave, and we even did the two halves of Tilton Ave, just in case there was some fundamental difference. And what you'll see is that the Area 4 total score was 13.7, I think, if I can read it that far away. Tilton Ave, against those same criteria, came out at 13.9. So basically the same. In order to reach the level of a needs area, and needs area wasn't defined that it wouldn't support septic. That nobody would be, you'd be spots all over town. It was, does it meet the needs criteria? The needs criteria cutoff was put at 10.84.
I'm sorry, it was what?
10.84 was the average, and where the of the needs areas was the average of the needs areas.
Anything less than that, they didn't
No,
include.
I'm sorry, I missed. That was the average. So you took all of the areas that were needs and those scores, and the average of those areas was 10.4. So Tilton Ave actually scored above the average for all of the needs areas. So that, there is no way that Tilton Ave would not have been put into the sewer service area if it wasn't for these other comments that had nothing to do with the requirement criteria.
Although the one comment from Bill Gustis, then chairman of the Sewer Commission, draft letter said Tilton is gravel, and there is like this esker there for where, and that's why they put houses there instead of the swamps around it, so.
Yeah, and Bob, that's a great comment. I'm glad you brought it up, because he was talking about something he knows nothing about. If you look at the engineer's report, that soil, that gravel, is not a good condition for septic. It actually, perk rates are too high. Where there's gravel, the perk rates were too high. So yes, it was gravel, and it implies something that wasn't even true, that it wasn't a good area for septic, that it was okay for septic. The engineering report, if you look at it, says that gravel area was not a good area for septic. So if you take these things out of context.
Whether it was in or not, whether it was done correctly or not, is important to understand, but I'm not going to go back to 2005 to say we shouldn't have done it that way, let's just add it in. The current standards for people to add in a sewer system, based on what the Sewer Commission is doing now and what the town has said, we're only going to extend sewer where we can't put septic system in reasonably.
I understand.
And I don't see any information relating to that tonight.
We'll just close on it. We have the chance to fix the mistake that we made in the past. Why not? We have the chance to do it. It helps the residents. I don't see the reason not to. It doesn't impact anything else. Possibly some of the things that you brought up, but we can fix the mistake that we made back then.
So I think we open up ourselves to potential lawsuits.
Sending a precedent.
Or a precedent, when you say we're going to do it here, and then somebody else is going to come here. Where do we stop? And I'm not saying we don't want to stop someplace else, but there's got to be a plan for where we're going to do it. Are there other places within the plan that aren't sewered now that we don't want to sewer? So.
I understand. Your recommendation will be what it will be. Thank you.
Okay, Article 26 has to do with eliminating Chapter 127 cigarette rolling paper. Please.
Good evening. My name is Lance Roselle. I'm the owner of Cedar Line. Plaza. With me is Smith Patel. He's the owner of City Line Market. Smoke shop, sorry. Deal with that for long. We're requesting, as you know, to end that prohibition on cigarette papers. Obviously, times have changed considerably, even for myself finding that out. And we feel that, especially in lieu of the changes in the state law and as well as the surrounding towns, that it would be beneficial to us to end that old ordinance, if we might.
I think Lunenburg agreed to marijuana when they voted for it, I believe. So this law is very old, so I feel like they're saying, okay, yes, you can re-legalize it, but you cannot do it, basically. And that law for paper was for marijuana back in the days, but not for cigarettes, because they didn't stop cigarette sale. So
Basically, what he's saying is that they've looked at just plain marijuana and dealt with that as a separate issue. We're just dealing with the cigarette papers. We have no intention of marijuana or anything like that. It's just that we just want to be able to have the same right as the surrounding towns to be able to sell cigarette papers. It's kind of like, you know, having prohibition in the old days and saying, okay, you can have alcohol again, but you can't have the beer bottles anymore. Still, you know what I mean? So hopefully you'll take that under consideration. Questions?
Questions?
Yeah, I think it's a carryover from when marijuana was illegal in all cases, and this was an attempt to try. It's sort of the whole paraphernalia, and why we had just cigarette papers, and some towns, you know, prohibit bongs and other things like that. So I'm not sure why we have it. I'd be okay with eliminating this chapter.
As would I.
As would I.
Same. Are we ready to make a recommendation?
Sure.
I would move that we recommend approval of this article.
Second?
Any further discussion?
Can I just add,
Sure.
I know the police chief had thoughts on this bylaw, but he was going to present those at town meeting.
Was he going to?
Yeah, I think we've...
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that doesn't mean the
mean
town
it's
approved.
Thank you, though.
Okay.
we get a lot of town citizens who are like elderly. They come in, they're so happy that they don't have to travel so far, and they can help themselves to closer location. So they're happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, it's legal. It's certainly, we certainly want to help businesses.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to recommend that we skip over the town manager report just because we're on such a great roll on town meeting articles. And I was going to suggest that I know that Bob plans to pass over Articles 27 and 28 as a result of the charter. And I just wondered if we can get a recommendation for either or both of those.
I would make a motion that we recommend passing over those two articles.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then finally, do we want to have a discussion on the amendment to the omnibus budget that Mr. Luck brought
I
up?
think we should.
Okay, well, this is the place to do it if we're going to have it.
Could I get the thoughts of the town manager?
Yes, certainly. So the police and fire chief and I have met on various occasions. We've discussed a long-term plan as far as implementing staff incrementally. And this is both a budgetary restriction, making sure we can sustain the personnel, because there's compounded effect of adding staff each year plus overtime. My concern with adding an additional firefighter to in 1 year is the overtime coverage, because once we move to that level of staffing, that full-timer will have to be, that shift will have to be covered by another full-timer, preferably. They get first option on that shift coverage. So they're in the long-term plan, which both chiefs have submitted recently, so we haven't delved into the specifics of them and had an opportunity to review all the numbers because they're quite extensive. But the overtime for 2 staff was approximately $40,000 for that year.
Okay, so that's in addition to the salary of the one additional person. Is that what you're saying? I'm trying to...
No, so the second firefighter EMT would be an additional 20, so total 40,000
Okay.
for overtime.
Okay.
Yeah. And my other comment on this is, right now, the fiscal 19 budget is a balanced budget. In order to increase the raise and appropriation amount for the fire department within the omnibus budget, we would have to decrease the raise and appropriation under the capital plan, which would mean using another source, increasing borrowing, basically, essentially shifting that to the capital plan. That's the only way the budget would be balanced. We were able to reduce the borrowing amount when we had a reduced, there was not just Monty Tech numbers, the numbers as we went along in the budget process shifted, so we were able to reduce the borrowing, anticipated borrowing for the ladder truck, which meant we could increase the raise and appropriation towards the capital.
So are you saying that the change in the Monty Tech number was already baked into the budget that's on the table now?
Into the budget, yes,
Yeah.
the current, that's before town meeting on Saturday, yes.
Okay, so in the event that we were to make this change, there would be an impact to the capital plan, and it would increase the borrowing requirement. That's what you're saying? Okay, by a factor
Because we
of-
would have to reduce the raise and appropriation amount by that, to offset that amount.
Okay. And do you know what that amount would be?
Mr. Luck is saying 60,000.
Okay. And I guess I'm questioning what that $60,000 is. Is that salary? Is that benefits? Is that the total package? Or is that, and I'm unclear as to when you talk about overtime, is that 60,000 salary plus the overtime number?
There, well, I haven't confirmed all the numbers. I provided the health insurance number that we use in the budget, because it would be
Okay.
additional health insurance costs. And we
Okay.
use the worst case scenario, because that employee would have the option of taking the highest plan. As well as, I believe, Carl spoke with the fire chief about the other numbers, and that's where he received those numbers.
So the long-term plan for full coverage is projected for when?
It's a 5-year plan, so in fiscal 20, we would be at that point.
Okay.
So you're suggesting we wait a year to get 24/7, when we could have it now?
That is the plan that we spoke of and we've agreed to, and in an overall sense too, it's not, it's balancing the needs of all the departments, and that's what we've all worked hard as together to do, because hopefully people recognize that the budget on Saturday addresses, not just one department's needs, but a number.
But my understanding is that the borrowing, the price tag for the average homeowner over 5 years, if you move that money from the ladder truck, is $14. $14 over 5 years to get 24/7 coverage now. I think we're being penny wise and pound foolish. The school committee, as I would like to keep reminding you, have increased the salary, the longevity payment of several teachers to $142,500 this year. It's going to add $1 million over 3 years. We're not blinking an eye at that. $60,000. I mean, 8 teachers are getting $5,700 a year, which is $45,000. 12 teachers are getting $3,800, which is another $45,000. That's $90,000 this year, just added to the teacher's contract, and that's not including the $1,900 for 27 teachers. $1 million over 3 years, and you're quibbling about $60,000 to give us 24/7 coverage now. You're going to save lives. I don't understand it.
So one of the things that the town has tried to do since we got a town manager was to not have the town against the school, the fire against the police, the DPW against any other department, and that we need to focus on not what one other department is doing, because what we've been doing is trying to focus on the school would love to have a 5% increase this year. They're getting a 3% increase. They probably could use a 7 or 8% increase based on the needs that I've heard for what the town needs to deal with, what we need to deal with for transportation and special needs that the state is not funding. I think we need to focus on the issue in hand and don't pit one department against another. I support this concept. I think that we should be using new growth to add in these positions as the new growth comes along. We're taking the added cost of the added revenue from motor vehicle excise and adding that to the road pavement plan. I think it's important that we have this process, that we do it incrementally. I personally think we could use 6 additional firefighters, and we could probably use certainly about 3 or 4 different police officers. We can never afford all the public safety we need. I don't think this is the way to go about it.
Mr. Chairman, if I...
I agree. Have you presented to the Finance Committee?
Twice.
And have they given you an indication of their recommendation?
No, I did not push them on that spot. At the last meeting, it was to share the information they didn't have regarding the cost, which is what it's all about, and where the money would come from. Because at the first meeting, that was their very good first question. Well, where's it going to come from?
Right.
At that time, I didn't have the information about the Monty Tech and so forth.
But you then did share it.
I shared that at the very last briefing with them, and I believe all of their concerns were addressed. The last one they had, actually, the chief of police addressed, because it was a question relative to the chief, and he addressed that. I'd like to, if possible, first I want to thank you for taking this time tonight to have this discussion, because you didn't have to. I hope it saves us all some time at town meeting. I'm sure all the rest of the people at town meeting will be happy if we save them some time. On the cost, I mean, to begin with, talk about balanced budget. The February budget, preliminary budget that was presented was a balanced budget. That budget had $535,000 of borrowing for the fire truck at that time, and that balanced. Because of some things happened, the Monty Tech being one of them, and some other things being others, $118,000 popped up that wasn't allocated anymore. But that $85,000 or $84,000 to Monty Tech was from taxes, the 2.5, and new growth. I mean, that was from our operating income. That was no one-time money. So it's that $85,000. So the fire truck was reduced from $535,000, which fit inside of our budget. It fit inside of all of our financial policies. I reconfirmed that yesterday with the Finance Committee, that this does not violate the finance borrowing. I mean, borrowing is not good. We want to keep it down. This is $60,000. This I don't think is going to affect our credit rating or the people who give us the ratings. So we're talking $60,000. The $60,000, to your question, addresses the indirect. What I have up here is the cost analysis. And what I put up, just to make sure that I accounted for every cost element that's in the 3 additions that are already in the budget, is I've just shown all 3, just my own sanity check. If I checked all the boxes, and I get a lot of help from Heather in terms of some of the numbers I didn't, quite get right. The base salary that I'm proposing in this $60,000 transfer is $53,000. Now, that's actually more than the EMT that's already in the budget, and this is wrong. The EMT in the budget's $49,000. And that's an EMT. I think we should give the chief the extra $4,000 so that if he wants to hire a paramedic, step 3, he can, because the long-term plan is to go to paramedic some 4, 5, 6, whatever number of years from now. But it may be a wiser decision to start now. So that salary line's a little higher than the other paramedic that's already in the budget. But again, because I want to protect. This isn't even the right file. Oh, damn. This isn't the right file. But the insurance, that Heather gave me the insurance, which is extremely conservative. It's the high-end $25,000 insurance policy, which, if we put that in for 3 or 4 people, that's $75,000, $100,000 of insurance. The average insurance we actually pay is $15,000. 11 people out of our 275 people that we insure, 11 take that high-end insurance. So the likelihood of the next 4 people we hire buy. So very conservative, but I use the number. But the number is in the 60,000. Overtime, I added another 3,000 based on Heather's concerns that were expressed about the overtime. $3,000 is enough for a full-time person, which was another thing I learned from Heather, that we need to count on full-time people. A full-time person for a 2-week vacation, time and a half, is $3,000. So I put that in. The chief had already asked me to put in $12,000 to cover overtime. So I've bumped that up to $15,000. I've added in also the uniform allowance, I believe was Heather, and then another
certification.
Another $170 things. But so apples to apples, everything that is in the current budget for those other people, I've put into that $60,000. The good news on this other person, which is, and what makes it extremely interesting is, when we go from where we are today to 24/7, the fire chief can save $31,000 that he's now paying for stipends and duty officers because he has to depend on call. Once he has a full-time staff on board, we save that $31,000. And that's how we get down to the 60,000, because that doesn't sound like enough.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
It's
well,
not
your
enough.
numbers are not
It's
adding
not
up to
enough. It's
60,000.
$90-something thousand fully loaded. But we no longer need these stipends, which, because we have the people on time, on board. So you save $31,000 by doing this. So you get the coverage, you save some serious money. You do what the plan says to do next year, which is to add the person. But we get this insurance policy for a year ahead, and somebody is going to need it. And I don't want to be the one who has to feel like I didn't do everything I could possibly do to try to get coverage so that person could get that service 6 to 10 minutes earlier and have a much better outcome. It seems to me like a no-brainer, and I'm looking for, and we found. And it's great, and that's why I've been doing this very openly, is because I've been getting a lot of good comments of, well, what about this insurance? Well, what about this overtime? Well, I'm concerned about, things. Every one of them, I believe, have been addressed. What I'm looking for is, what is the real killer issue that's stopping us from doing this? And I don't think it's because it's not our current plan. That to me is a little weak. Why not do it this year if we can financially? It doesn't cost anything more. You won't see it in the tax rate. You won't see it anywhere. All you'll see is that we've got another $60,000 to being borrowed, which is going to cost the average taxpayer another $2.38, maybe at 83 cents a year for the next 3 years out of their tax bill. It's not additional to their tax bill. It's just a piece of their tax bill. They're going to be contributing that. $14 it's going to get this person.
Carl, I just want to say that I support what you're trying to do and where you're coming from. I got to make my standard comment that there's a lot of people, department heads, the town manager, finance committee, us, who work all year to put together a plan, and I don't know what any of us are doing up here if we just keep governing on town meeting floor. But I do
support what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dan.
I think I have to say that I find it very disheartening when somebody shows up at town meeting and on the fly tries to borrow from Peter to pay Paul and to support a pet project after the capital planning group and the finance committee and the department heads and everybody else spent a year doing it. I don't think Carl is doing that. I think he clearly has done his homework. I think it's a very good proposal. I think you've touched base with a lot of different people. I hate the precedent, and I think I would prefer to wait until town meeting and hear what the finance committee has to say, what the chief has to say if he has something to say. But that's just kind of my opinion. I don't think this is on the fly. I think you've done an incredible job of looking at all the things. But in general, there's people that work all year to get the budget together, and when we hear things like it's only $14 or it's only $18 or, that's what everybody could say, and then before you know it, it's big money. But
I would agree. I would be interested to hear from the Finance Committee, and I want to look at the numbers again. I want to understand, and I thank you for providing the packet, because I do want to look at it. Do we have that in our packet, this presentation?
I don't think...
No, it was sent to finance, right?
Could you,
I don't, not,
could you possibly
I'm glad you don't
email
have
it
this
out
one.
to us?
Yes,
I would
I'll send you the
like
right
to-
one.
so-
The other thing I'd like more information on, Carl mentioned the implementation of the paramedic. We've talked about that. You finished negotiating the current contract?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, we can talk. So part of the discussion goes of when are we going to actually add paramedics, and what's that going to cost the town? And I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, but we need to know what that's going to be, and Carl talked about giving some money so we can start it sooner. What's the impact on that?
And it is a bigger impact than just the personnel. There's an impact to the ambulance and to the supplies and to the equipment.
capital.
And to the,
Right.
so we have to understand that.
Yeah. And I just want, I intentionally, one of the things I learned in this process, if it weren't for that salary item, you would not have heard the word paramedic out of me, because it confuses people. This has nothing to do with that long-term, get the paramedic level. It could, I want to do stupid things in the meantime, but it isn't that. This is just get 24-hour coverage.
Has the long-term plan for public safety been presented to the Finance Committee?
No, because we just,
Okay,
it was just submitted to me.
I think that would be helpful to...
They were given a copy.
Okay.
But it hasn't been presented.
Okay.
And, when the police chief, Terry, I think, from Finance, asked the other night, aren't the police the first on call at the scene anyway, and they have, what do they call it, AED or something? And the police chief got up and said, look, we've only got 3 of those, and they often aren't in the cars. The guys have to take them out when they go. They're on the rack. Sometimes they forget. And in the winter, they have to be brought inside because they get cold. And sometimes the guys don't remember, or the batteries go down. You said, we're not the first responders. You can't, and sometimes we'll be on another call, so we can't get there. He was very explicit.
Can't rely on them.
You
for
can't
that.
rely on
You can
For that-
rely on them
for
to be
that-
the
for
true
that
first
specific,
responder,
right.
but not to be the paramedic. Or
Right, or the EMT, the EMS.
EMS. So he very articulately explained that. It's not a replacement. He said they have to work together.
I just have one question
Sure.
and one comment. Carl, you mentioned 31,000? Because the number used prior for the stipends was 26,000.
Yeah, if you remember at the meeting, I think you're at the meeting. One of the chief's view graphs on what could be saved, there were 2 elements on it, the 26,000 for the on-call stipend. And there was another line item on there that I hadn't even noticed until that night, quite frankly. That was 10.4 thousand for the duty officer. So there needs to be a duty officer at all times, I guess. And he said, with this person, you couldn't get rid of the full 10.4, but you could get rid of half of it. You'd only need half of that 10.4, so that's the other 5.2 thousand.
Okay. And just a comment, the most common health plan is not 15,000, I think you said.
No, I said the average, if you take all of the people that are covered, not the ones that aren't covered. If you take all of our employees that are covered, and you take the average coverage, it's 15,000. Most of them, the number is 168, I think, of them, of the 275 are the HMO, which is 19,090, I think now, with the new agreement you've negotiated. Thank you. So, like I say, 11 people take that $24,000, because it costs them a lot of money, too. So only 11 out of that. So 4% of our employees take the $24,000 coverage. 60-something percent take the family coverage, which is 19.
But you're using the higher number in your...
Yeah.
Okay.
As
All right. I just wanted to clarify that because it's the most common plan is
the
closer
most
to
common
20,000.
is a 19,090.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a lot to do tonight, including the ever-popular town facilities, so let's move on to the town manager report.
Okay. And it's a lengthy one. So, first item to report on is the District Local Technical Assistance from Montechusett Regional Planning Commission. Land Use Director Adam Burney met with MRPC staff John Hume and Karen Chapman on Tuesday the 17th, and the contracts were executed for MRPC to assist the town to develop a promotional brochure and permanent guidebook that should be finalized by November. The design and details of the brochure will be formulated by working with the business community at the regular meetings we have been having. And instead of listing all the businesses on the brochure, there will be QR codes or links back to the town website.
What's a QR code?
It's like a scan code. If you had a smartphone, you could scan that and it'd come up with the information. You're welcome. The other DLTA assistance will come in the form of creating a permanent guidebook, and MRPC will work with the planning board and land use director to outline the requirements for applicants to apply for various permits. The open meeting law training. On Wednesday, April 25th, there were 2 open meeting law trainings, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. There was staff from every department present and many boards, committee, commission members. The presentation town council gave at this training is now on the website, and an email to the townwide listserv has been circulated to inform staff and committee board members know where they can view that information. LED streetlight conversion, and there's also information in the Google Drive under the town manager report detailing these letters from Unitil. At the March 6th meeting, I reported that I requested the accumulated depreciation value of our 335 streetlights and the estimated cost if Unitil were to place these lights with LED fixtures. We received the formal quote from Unitil that the accumulated depreciation value is $81,808.79. In response to our request for a proposal for Unitil to provide and install new LED fixtures for these 335 streetlights that they would continue to own and maintain, and we received 2 options. The first option includes an estimated cost that includes police details in the amount of $45,000. It also includes the undepreciated cost of the existing high-pressure sodium lights in the amount of $81,808.79, and an estimated cost for removing and installing new LED lights for $33,500, and an energy efficiency incentive credit for $33,500, for a grand total of $126,808.79. Option 2 includes the same costs and credit minus the $45,000 for police details, which assumes that the town would agree to waive the police detail costs, for a grand total of $81,808.79. Unitil estimates the town would save approximately $29,760 a year by converting to LED, and this is with Unitil owning the lights. The other option the town would have is to purchase the existing streetlights from Unitil and go out to bid to have a third party install new LED streetlights, and then the town would be responsible for replacing and maintaining these lights. The Green Communities Task Force has a meeting on May 10th to review the quotes from Unitil. An update on the Summer Street project. Mass DOT issued the notice to proceed to the contractor on April 25th, and the pre-construction meeting will be scheduled within the next 3 weeks. An update on the skateboard park. On Monday, April 30th, I met with Anthony Caiazo and Greg Roy regarding site survey and soil testing work to be done on the land between TC Passios and Kids Kingdom for the proposed skateboard park. Greg Roy is a professional engineer and partner at Descharmy and Dillis in Bolton and is able to provide surveying and engineering support for the project. Mr. Roy will do a topographical survey from the road to the back of the property that will not require any disturbance to the area for that portion. The next step will require soil testing, which will disturb the property at 4 to 6 locations on the proposed site, with test pits that will be approximately 3 feet wide by 10 feet deep. The DPW director has offered assistance that will require about 2 to 3 hours of his time to use with the backhoe to do those test pits, and then they would be filled back in level. A skateboard park designing firm will use the results from the survey and soil testing results to create a design for that space. The fundraising has commenced, and the group would like to advertise both the future site of the skateboard park as well as their fundraising efforts. Mr. Roy and Mr. Caiazo will submit a design of the sign to the land use director to ensure conformance with the sign bylaw. The expected timeframe to break ground is late summer, early fall, and they will come back to the selectmen to give an update prior to breaking ground. An update I gave to the Finance Committee at the meeting last Thursday, and I believe the board is also aware because you signed the refunding for the USDA loans and the bond issuance, is due to the recent refunding of the USDA and water sewer USDA loans and the bond issuance for the pavement management plan. The refunding of the water and sewer loans reduces the sewer enterprise revenue that offsets this loan by $11,103.58 and reduces the water betterment revenue that offsets this loan by $4,312.87. The bond issuance for the pavement management plan increased our principal payments for FY19 by $54,946.55 and our interest payments by $37,808.67, which, because they are excludable debt, were added to the debt exclusion amount on the revenue side. Both have a net zero effect on the budget, as the change on the revenue side is the same as the expenditure side. Announcements about childcare and food during annual town meeting. At the March 6th meeting, I reached out to Superintendent Collins to inquire about offering childcare during the meeting in order to increase participation at town meeting. Childcare during annual town meeting will be available for children pre-K through grade 5, beginning at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday and will last until no more than 30 minutes after the close of town meeting, and it will be held at the Lunenburg Primary School. Parents must pre-register for the service no later than noon on Friday, May 4th, to ensure adequate staffing is available. Parents and guardians not currently registered to attend extended day will need to complete registration form that is available through the school, and the town website will be posted on the town website and Facebook. Parents and guardians must provide photo ID to register. Families interested in the service must email the extended day director, Tammy Perry, at tperry, P-E-R-R-Y, at lunenburgonline.com to register. There will be no charge for this service. Anyone failing to pick up their child within the 30-minute time frame after the close of the town meeting will be assessed the full cost of childcare services that day. In addition, the Women's Club will be providing brown bag lunches to purchase, and the school committee has waived their requirement of no food in the auditorium for this event. I want to thank Superintendent Combs and the extended day program staff for coordinating, offering childcare during the town meeting, and also the Women's Club for their efforts in preparing lunches for what is typically a long annual town meeting. Health insurance. The selectmen signed an updated Public Employee Committee agreement on April 10th, and all the unions that make up the Public Employee Committee have voted to approve the agreement, which will go into effect on July 1st. A Public Employee Committee agreement is mandatory since a vote of the Board of Selectmen in May of 2008 to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 19, which calls for the creation of a Public Employee Committee, a PEC. And the terms of the health care coverage offered to the town and the school employees is outlined in this agreement. The 4-year agreement that was signed introduces a deductible type plan and reduces the monthly premium for all plans and will reduce the town's OPEB liability by an estimated $8 million. An educational meeting will be held in the near future and while open enrollment is still ongoing. Department of Public Works Facebook page. This announcement, I'm sure half of Lunenburg knows by now. They have started their own Facebook page to post information, snow updates, and other pertinent information, and that went live last week. The DPW director and the DPW administrative assistant have posting capabilities. In just a few short days, the page has, I think it's over 500 likes now and follows. And I appreciate that the DPW director is doing that outreach to the community. An earmark in the fiscal 19 House and Senate budgets. Early in the fiscal year, Senator Tran had requested a list of capital projects to advocate in the capital improvement bill that was filed as part of the fiscal 19 budget. Representative Benson contacted me this week to relay that one of the projects, $25,000 to upgrade the HVAC system that is failing in the older section of the Eagle House, has made it through the House budget. The next step is for the budget to go to the conference committee, and if the Senate and House language agrees on this earmark, it will not be debated and will move forward. I'll keep the board informed as the state budget is finalized. Performance evaluations. Department heads were provided draft performance evaluations for management and non-management personnel, and I expect to have any questions or comments back by preferably mid-May with a goal of finalizing them by the end of May. Some information updates from the departments. At our monthly department head meeting on April 24th, the following topics and updates were given. The cable access coordinator related that the staff is working on doing a multi-camera wireless shoot for town meeting to provide better coverage. So there'll be 2 cameras positioned on the stage this year at town meeting to face the audience, so they'll have coverage of people coming to the microphone and hopefully better coverage overall. The 3 selectmen candidates have been invited to do 10-minute segments in the cable studio that will be aired on Channel 8. The cable is working on a bi-monthly newsletter and that is currently being drafted and will be shared through various mediums once available. An update from the assessors. Another motor vehicle excise commitment went out the week of April 17th that included over 881 bills for the 2018 motor vehicle excise taxes totaling $198,772.30. And this is an increase over the previous fiscal year by $84,281.43. Supplemental real estate bills will be mailed out on April 30th for new construction totaling $98,000. An update from the collector treasurer. The town treasurer collector is continuing to work with tax title attorney to hold a tax title assignment auction. From February 27th until April 23rd, $104,934.96 has been collected from property owners with properties in tax title. And the list of properties in tax title has been reduced from 34 properties to 29. Comparing the total of what has been collected for the same 9-month period in fiscal 18 compared to fiscal 17, $231,260 more has been collected in tax title receivables in fiscal 18. The date of the tax title assignment auction has been postponed from the original April date to a date to be determined once all the necessary notifications and advertising requirements are worked out, but it is expected to be at the beginning of the new fiscal year. Based on the list of properties, the board discussed and wished to proceed with the foreclosure process 4 of those properties have moved forward towards foreclosure. The treasurer collector expects an additional 1 to 2 more this year based on projected funding available. An update from the DPW director. The DPW coordinated having a moving company move all the records out of the town hall attic on Friday, April 20th. All records that were marked by individual departments for approved for destruction were put into a dumpster, and the rest were moved to a designated classroom at the TC Passios building. And just, if I had the connection, I would show everyone. I can do it at a later point. But the pictures in your Google Drive show the attic full of records and now an empty attic, which it will stay that way. So I want to thank the DPW for that. The DPW is now transitioned to spring cleanup and beginning the paving season. A portion of Lancaster Road was repaved, and the DPW director will provide an updated paving schedule that will be published on the town website, as well as the traditional postcards and mailboxes to affected residents, post on the new Facebook page, and announce in the Ledger. In addition to the DPW work on spring cleanup, the Turkey Hill gardeners are assisting with the landscaping around town center. And also an update on work being done for a small playground at McNally Field at the Whalum Luxury Apartments. The IT director gave an update on the website. I have also been working with the IT director on this. The content migration is now complete, and the next step in the process is we will be setting up a date and time for all departments to get trained on updating their content on the new site. The site is expected to go live within the month. An update from the land use director. The electronic permitting software is going live for internal users next week, and it is estimated to go live for external users by the beginning of June. The land use director also reported that after town meeting, the planning board will begin focusing on drafting regulations to regulate the time, place, and manner for permitting recreational marijuana. And just an update on other meetings and trainings and seminars I attended. Today I attended an economic development summit that was held at the DCU Center, and it was put on by Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, and Housing and Economic Development Secretary Jay Ash. And I attended the session on community-based innovation, which I found very pertinent to a discussion we'll have later tonight on use of space. And it was focusing on collaborative workspace, and they had a case study of the Orange Innovation Center that I think I will be planning on visiting just to see what it's all about. And it's a great highlight to see if we could replicate something like that.
We discussed that at the meeting we were at, too, at the Bull Run, didn't we?
DPW union negotiations. The next DPW union negotiation meeting is tomorrow, May 2nd. And I have a meeting with Chief Marino, the Townsend Town Administrator, Townsend Deputy Police Chief, with the sole firm that submitted a bid to provide architectural services to design a new regional animal control facility on Friday, May 4th. And that's all.
Thank you.
When will we get to discuss the LED lighting options?
I would assume that after the Green Communities reviews it, they might have a recommendation as far as what they would propose, whether it be going with the option with Unitil to install those lights, or to have a third party do that, go out to bid and have a third party.
You know, when they mention waiving the police patrol money, I mean, we'd still have to provide police patrols, right?
Yes, I don't think that would be an option for the town.
Yeah. So it's still the same kind of money, really?
Yes.
Just who pays for
They
it.
don't, yeah, just who pays for it, okay. And I have a question about the skateboard park. I was thinking kind of about when the turf was originally done. That was same kind of thing, you know, the community got together and raised the money, but then there was nobody to take care of it, and we got into this huge hole with having to take care of it and having to replace it. Has that been thought through with concern for the skate park? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to have to fix it? And when it wears out, who's going to have to replace it? You know, those are really important things that have to be thought about before a shovel goes into the ground, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that question was raised when they came before the board at another meeting. I've been to other meetings that they've met with groups, and they said there would be very minimal replacement and work done based on the materials.
So we
But
haven't really set any rules about that.
No.
Then that's something else we need to talk about. And the land use regulations on marijuana, that looked odd to me. I don't understand how planning determines that. It just feels like a weird place for their role.
Is that the zoning? They're going to come back for zoning bylaws because we currently have a moratorium?
Yes. If Adam, land use director, is here, so he can answer these questions.
All right, come on, Adam.
So, the way that the referendum was written specifically states time, place, and manner. And so time is, when, and that would be, potentially setting business hours through zoning bylaws. Where would be zoning? What zoning districts? Do we create a new zoning district? Is it an overlay district? Does the town look to prohibit it, soup to nuts? And manner is how it happens. Is there a square footage limit? Is there different parking requirements? Is there certain things that they can and can't do in the design of the building that the town feels is important for an adult use marijuana shop to be doing that would, prevent or block view of certain transactions or things like that. Time, place, and manners,
I think the question goes, this is going to come before town meeting.
Correct, yes.
This is not the
They're going
planning board on
to
their
put together
own
a
doing it.
proposal for a zoning bylaw.
But I was just thinking, it feels like, the police chief should have something to do with it, and that the Board of Selectmen regulates alcohol and bars and things, so it just seemed odd.
Well, the way that the Cannabis Control Commission has set it up, and I know you have a long agenda, so I'll try and be as quick as I can. I know I get wordy. The Cannabis Control Commission is the ultimate authority. So adult use marijuana is going to be the mirror image of alcohol, where alcohol comes to the locality first, the municipality. You guys give it a yay or nay, and then it just goes up the ladder to the state, and the ABCC says, oh, well, they signed off, we don't have any big problem, go ahead. It's the complete opposite. All of the initial filing starts with the Cannabis Control Commission. They send a note to the local jurisdiction, the municipality, that says, we've received this application, we've vetted it in total, does this conform with your local regulations? It's a yes or no question. It's not a, well, we don't really like that guy, we'd rather have this guy. It's, yep, they're in the right spot, and we sign off, and it goes back to them, and they issue all the licenses. There's a provision that they have to hold a community meeting before they can formally apply to the Cannabis Control Commission. There's a lot of nuance to it, but essentially someone comes to town, holds a public meeting, and says, we want to do this. The town gives them their input, and it's just informational. It's not a, no, you can't do this other than what's in your zoning bylaw. So they've kind of shaken up the whole process from what municipalities are used to.
So when do you think you'll come before the town? Fall town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to be. The moratorium ends at the end of November.
Okay. So we'll be...
Well, good luck. Sounds like a lot of work.
Thank you.
Now, I noticed there was a lot of activity with the DPW. We had asked for a report on road opening requests, approvals, denials, and I thought it was going to happen like quarterly, but I think pavement, we must be in our second year yet, and I haven't seen a report. Do you have any reports?
Road openings, like
The
waiver of
Yeah,
the
right.
street opening, the policy that we adopted, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that we're following through on, has anyone asked for it?
Okay.
Have they been approved, or have they been turned down?
Yeah, right.
So has anyone requested it? Okay.
And what
Yeah,
the outcome.
and what was the
Okay.
outcome? And we were supposed to get a report on a sort of a regular basis. Oh, and I had another question about the McNally Park, the playground at McNally Park. Again, is that the town going to have to take care of that and replace it and keep it up, or?
The
That was part of the
zoning board of
permit, right?
appeals.
That was part of the planning board.
As part of the approval for the Whalen
Oh,
Luxury
sorry,
Apartments,
ZBA.
the Zoning Board of Appeals included the transfer of a approximately 30,000 square foot parcel and the installation of playground equipment, not to exceed a specific dollar amount, from the proponent of the apartment building. So that individual has approached the school committee about placing a bus shelter for students from the apartment complex and potentially nearby neighborhoods. I don't know how much that would get used other than the apartment complex. And he has had an initial meeting with a representative from the Parks Commission, and I think once he has a design, we'll sort of be working with them to say this fits into our sort of scheme of what we might want to see, fits in with McNally Field, fits in with what's happening at Wallace Park, and then he has to take it to the zoning board and they have to bless it. And ultimately, all of that gets turned over to the town, and the town is then responsible for carrying custody.
Turn over to the park department?
I believe it gets turned over to the town.
Once you see what it says, because I think it was supposed to go to expand McNally Park.
Well, it is, and
So
I don't
therefore
believe that the Parks Department has custody of McNally. I think it's owned by the town of Lunenburg, and they manage it through that hierarchical structure. But I don't want to
And
talk out of school.
I know
I'd
that
be wrong.
when that was approved through the ZBA, the park department
But
wasn't
the
part of
intent is that all
conversation.
gets folded together and it becomes one parcel, and provides for I think something other than a ball field on that site.
We might think about transferring that property to the park department. Because if it's not the park department, then it's
above my pay grade.
the selectmen. Or the
I think
town
it's still town property. It's because it's a park, then the park commission is responsible for.
Just as long as it's clear,
Yes.
as Ms. Phyllis was talking about, was that there's clear authority of who's supposed to be responsible.
Right.
Okay? All right. First item of current business is the Stormwater Task Force composition. Is that you, Phyllis, or the
Yes.
town manager? Okay.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's see, I'm trying to look for where it is. As you can see, the Stormwater Task Force was originated in September of 2015. We had our first meeting in January of 2016, and since that point, we've gotten a lot of things done. We've ticked off a lot of things on the list. I sent you the stormwater master plan minimum control measures 1 through 6 that shows the best management practice descriptions, audience, responsible entity, measurable goals, the years are going to be undertaken. So we've got a lot of things done. Back in June of 2016, this board reduced the membership to 5 members. The Board of Health didn't have the time to meet with us, and we got rid of one of the members at large because it was difficult to keep 2 members at large. Since that point, we've moved along with 4 members, and as I said, gotten a lot done. The DPW director feels that he does not have enough time in his schedule with his paving management clicking up now because of the accelerated paving schedule. And I spoke with Land Use Director, Adam Burney, who comes to all of our meetings. He has agreed to be the conduit between the DPW, because we certainly know we need the DPW's input, and the task force. So we'll get information from the DPW through Adam, and Adam will send the information back to the DPW director. It's more work for Adam, but he was amenable to it. It's not the best way to do it, but I think the three of us, the Conservation Commission member, the Planning Board member, and the member of the Board of Selectmen, will be able to keep things on track. We are members of the Central Mass Regional Stormwater Coalition. I'm currently the secretary of that group. We get a lot of information through the Central Mass. They are working with the state Stormwater Coalition, which we are also a part of, and they are going to have a whole educational outreach plan available for us this summer that we're going to be able to take and begin to implement. The three of us were at the Earth Day event a couple Sundays ago, and we had an educational we had the Enviroscape set up so we could show people what a watershed is and why we need to take care of our watershed, to take care of our water, and we will continue to do things like that, the three of us, and so we have also been unable to secure another community member. We certainly would love to be a 5-board member. It would be great if we had 2 community members, and if we find someone with a pulse who's willing to help us out, we'll come back to the board and ask that the group be enlarged. So I'm asking that you reduce the membership of the group to a member of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the Planning Board, and a member of the Board of the Conservation Commissioners, because without that, we will have huge quorum issues.
So I've got a suggestion, similar to what we did for the Agricultural Commission, of proposing to have 2 alternates that could be appointed. Would you be open to that?
Oh, sure.
Not requiring their quorum. I would make a motion that we change the composition of the Stormwater Task Force to include a member from the Conservation Commission, Board of Selectmen, and Planning Board, and 2 alternate members to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Great. That would be very helpful.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Somebody might be willing to be an alternate without having.
Yeah, right. We'll reel them in.
We have minutes from 4/3. We have warrants.
Hefty one.
Accounts payable in the amount of $1,059,060.67. Accounts payable in the amount of $2,149.20. Payroll deduction in the amount of $38,572.08. And I assume this is payroll.
Yes.
In the amount of $730,360.41. Any action file issues?
Well, it's the same action file issue I keep bringing up. I had asked that there be a discussion about the assumption that taxes be raised 2.5% every year, and was told that would happen during the budget discussions, and that never happened. I don't want to let go of it. I really think that, like I said, my taxes have gone up 30% since 2014. I believe it's unsustainable. I've been talking to people at the senior center and around town, and there are a lot of people who don't know how much longer they can live in our town. They can't afford the tax rate any longer. They've lived in town a long time. I remember in 1979, the taxes on our property were $600 and something a year. It's just, salary increases of 2.5% and much greater are routinely given out. The school budget proposed is over 3%. Several Finance Committee members seem to be willing to go along with yet another debt exclusion, which is a way around the 2.5% limit. Enough is enough. I really want this to be put on an agenda. Obviously, it can't happen before town meeting anymore, but we still need to have it, in my opinion.
I would recommend that we have this in a joint meeting with the Finance Committee.
Great.
Okay, let's try to make that happen. But again, I think it's reasonable to say that it will occur after town meeting.
Yeah.
In enough time to build its way into our planning.
Right. It's not really a fire drill if it's after town meeting, you know.
I have two kind of housekeeping action file issues for the board. We had talked about addressing our progress against goals for the last year, both the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, and I'm going to recommend that for two reasons. One is because we're running out of time with this current board, and second, because there's some question of new open meeting law affecting chair's compilation of input, that we do that. We're going to add that on the agenda for next week and do it as an open discussion as opposed to a compilation. So I'll get something out for the agenda for next week, but we will discuss as a board in open meeting our performance against our goals for last year and our assessment of the town, and we'll invite the town manager to join that discussion in terms of her activity versus her goals. And Mrs. Luck will give us some written input that I'll read into the record. Okay. The other thing is that because Phyllis will not be with us on the first meeting after the election, I'm going to I'd just like to get your input if you think it would be appropriate for us to hold our reorganization meeting to the first meeting in June, which would be June 5th, so that we'll have our full board for that.
That's good.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Okay, fine. Any other action file issues? Unless there's some burning need to do committee reports, I'm going to suggest we skip them and go to our workshop agenda. Okay? Which is pretty much the rest of our meeting on town facilities.
And are we going to stay up here, or are we going to
Yeah.
go down there? Okay.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, that's fine.
Paula, you know what I can do? I can put this in the Google Drive now. Your slides that you gave me.
Okay. Does that mean they'll be up there?
Yeah, I can project it too, but I can
Okay.
put it, so hold on one second.
Okay.
But it won't be in PowerPoint, it'll be in a funny format, right? Yeah, I don't think it will display properly.
Let me try it.
Because it'll be in a PDF.
The one on this drive is in PowerPoint.
Okay. But I don't have PowerPoint on here, right?
No, but it just uploaded to the Town Facilities Workshop folder.
Okay.
Mine opened. So.
And it's the PDF one?
No, it's the PowerPoint.
You may have to go out and then in.
Oh, okay.
Do what?
Do you have to go out of Google Drive completely and then get it back in?
This is it, right?
I don't know
That's
how
one
to
that
do
should.
Yeah, that's, so you got to go,
Is that what we're looking for? or not?
go,
No, that's,
Oh,
yeah, right, easy for me to say.
that's not the one Paula did.
I think it was there.
Where I am.
That's how,
Need to refresh, go back.
and then go to the, get to the,
Oh, right here.
It's there.
Okay, there
Yep.
it is. Okay.
So do you want to set the stage for this or just start? Pause. Okay.
I'll set the stage. So tonight's meeting, the board was asked to bring their ideas for each of the 5 buildings that we've been discussing in most of these meetings, the Town Hall, the Ritter, the Brooks, the Passios, and the old primary school. So each board member will have an opportunity to discuss their ideas, and the goal hopefully will be to narrow down a consensus on what we think the use or reuse of those buildings should be. And I have some slides too as well to share. So if Selectman Bertram, do you want to start?
Sure.
Let me see.
Do you want me to, you're going to have to advance it if you don't mind, or we could switch.
Yep.
If you don't mind
Nope,
advancing it.
yeah.
So I want to be clear, obviously, these are my objectives and my suggestions, not the board's. But the first building that I looked at was the town hall reuse. And if we can move to the next. My thought on the town hall is it would be an ideal place for a year-round farmers and artisans collaborative or market. My thought is that it would be a great utilization of the space. It would retain the historical significance, and I think it would serve very well for our existing businesses in Lunenburg. And there appears to be a very strong initiative on the community side to improve those services for our local farmers and crafters. So that's what I think this building would be. The proposed strategy of how to do that is obviously there needs to be a strong interest amongst the farmers and the crafters. If there isn't an interest, then obviously it won't get off the ground. How the board could help, or how an economic development committee could help, is I think that they could assist in the formation of a farmers and arts collaborative, again with the buy-in of the farmers and artisans. We could apply for grant funding for building rehab, and I'll talk about some of those grants later on. My thought is that we would lease the building free of charge, with the stipulation that the cost of the operation would have to be funded by the collaborative.
What about maintenance and upkeep?
Again, funded by the collaborative. The Ritter Building reuse, what do we do with the Ritter Building? Personally, I think it's one of the prettiest buildings in the center, and I think it would fit ideally for a building to be leased long-term. My proposal would be to lease it, retain ownership, but do a long-term lease, 10 years plus. My first preference would be to solicit to see if there's an interest in a farm-to-table restaurant, and with the stipulation that a percentage of the menu has to be locally grown. And again, that would assist our farmers. Or if that is not able to be achieved, is to do a specifically defined retail space, and only uses that would be identified in the RFP would be allowed. And any modification to the building would have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, the Architectural Preservation Committee, and/or any additional committee that this board assigned to review. All costs for the operation and maintenance would be similar to the town hall. It would be borne by the leaseholder. One of the big issues that I see with that building is parking. In order to provide adequate parking, I believe a portion of the existing parking lot at the old primary could be utilized, along with additional head-in parking along School Street, and I'll show that option later on. The old primary building, unfortunately, I think we've all accepted that existing structure needs to be demolished. I know that there's been talk about a park, and I am going to address that, but personally, I don't think this is the site for that. I think we could repurpose the site and utilize a portion of the land for Ritter and Historical Society parking, and then I think we can lease or sell the back portion of the land, and I'm going to show that as well, for a predefined, pre-permitted use. The next slide kind of shows an overview. You can see the Ritter Building. I wish I had a laser, but I don't. You can see the Ritter Building up in the corner. Off of School Street right now, there's an island, and I think that you could accommodate additional head-in parking there, which is basically to the side of the building, and utilize the existing parking in front of the building, as well as the roadway coming in off of Lancaster. Overflow parking would be off of School Street in front of the historical building, utilizing some of the existing pavement. And right now there is a roadway that goes around the old primary. It goes sort of in front, and you'll see it in a picture later on, that goes around the building. And then where the existing playground space is, I think you could accommodate parking. And the next slide, it does mess up. It does on this, but it doesn't on that. Good. in front of where the existing asphalt is, where it says overflow parking for Ritter and Historical Society, I think that could be parking for the Ritter and Historical. The existing building would be demolished and retail space would be in the back. I think we would want to incorporate as much green space as we can in the paving proposal. And the next slide shows the parking for the Ritter. You can see the island along School Street. My thought is where the old public safety building is, which is now dirt, adjacent to the Verizon building, could potentially be parking, and potential head-in parking, and I don't know, that would have to be looked at by I'm not an architect, obviously, but head-in parking in that area. In the rear of the building, where the existing playground is, you can see the asphalt going down to the old playground. The old playground could be accommodate parking. Obviously, because of the change in topography, you'd have to incorporate a stairway. I have been to several retail establishments that do this. They would incorporate a decorative stairway along with green space. Handicap parking would be in the front of the building. The next slide is really just an overview to give you a visual look down at the property. So the existing pavement that you see in front of the Historical Society and adjacent to the Ritter would remain, and then the area in front, that primary would be gone, and there would be retail space, and what's now the overgrown playground in the back of the building would become parking. I know there's a lot of concern about selling land and what that would bring to the town center. My thought is that if the decision is made to sell a portion of the property, it would be with restrictions and pre-permit desired uses, and identify what those uses are, and formulate an RFP with specific building envelope options, and so that you can design how it's going to look and how it's going to fit in the center of town. What happens with the Passios building? I think the Passios building, based on the building assessment reports, is one of the most viable options. My thought, again, my personal opinion, is that to locate municipal offices in one section or wing, remove the Brooks House, hopefully relocate it by a buyer, remove the turnaround, and construct a park and green space. Having grown up in Pepperell, I understand the importance of having a town field and green space, and I think that this is the ideal place to do that. Some additional parking would have to be constructed, and alongside the municipal wing, and then potentially to the rear of the building. I think the Passios offers an opportunity to make that a very viable, vibrant community use space, which could be utilized by children, adults, and seniors. I know I've heard talk about the concern about bringing a municipal building into the school campus. I see it as an opportunity to make it a community campus. I think we could lease a wing of the building to help offset some of the costs, potentially to the Boys and Girls Club or another entity. I think the cafeteria offers a lot of opportunities for a potential farmers collaborative, and that's what I'd like to see happen ideally with that space. If we were to construct a large park in front of the building, it could support an expanded outdoor farmers market with restroom facilities. The park would be adjacent to the existing school field, which would allow for expanded recreational opportunities. A community space could offer programs, as I said, for adults and children, providing an opportunity to bring people of all ages together. Again, the cafeteria could be utilized by either a farmers collaborative or a leased private entity. Leasing to help offset operation costs. And why the need to locate municipal offices in one place? Having dealt with a severely handicapped dad, I recognize how difficult it is for someone in a wheelchair to navigate from building to building. And while it might not seem like a big deal to drive from Town Hall over to Ritter, it can be. And I heard another member talk about fully accessible, and I would like to see the Passios made fully accessible. I think that's a huge benefit to citizens, and additionally, having all the administration and land use offices located in one central location would support a collaboration between all departments and potentially increase efficiency. If the skate park is constructed, which it sounds like it will be, which is great, it would be adjacent to Kids Kingdom. If you had Kids Kingdom, a skate park, and then a park, I think it would be a recreational mecca. So if you look right now, this is the overview. If you look at the TCP building, what is now the turnaround would become a park, and the existing pavement for the Brooks House and the Brooks House would be eliminated. The skate park is shown adjacent to Kids Kingdom. Municipal parking would be located next to the skate park, and as we all saw when the skate park proposal was done, that does seem to be a viable option. To the rear of the TCP currently, there is a dirt parking area which is currently utilized. I'm not sure if the school is utilizing it or if someone else is utilizing it, but having driven there a couple times during the day, it is in use. So potentially you would need to construct another, and I think that would fit potentially either enlarging that parking lot or a separate parking lot between the two wings. The next slide really I tried to give you a visual. So if you were standing at Mass Ave, this is the existing walkways and pavement to the Brooks House and the existing parking area of the Brooks House. Now instead of that, you're going to see a park from Mass Ave all the way to the front of the driveway at TCP. And if you can... Sorry. So now you have green space there, and then right next to that, or across the road, is the school field, opening up a very expanded opportunity for recreational opportunities. If you just standing there, I took a lot of photographs that day of all of the buildings. But if you're standing now in the driveway looking at the existing flagpole, now you're looking at a park or a town field from the community building and municipal offices, because the Brooks House would be gone and all of the pavement would be eliminated. So the existing roadway that connects the to Memorial Drive from the TCP really opens up an opportunity. If you think about it, it would connect the senior center, the library, the municipal offices, a community building, which would be housed in the TCP, the indoor market and art facility at the town hall, the town green, the skate park. I believe it creates a walkable, multi-use area and really a town campus type setting. From a stormwater perspective, I think that we need to look at other alternatives other than asphalt. There are numerous asphalt alternatives out there, and they control and manage runoff. They remove pollutants, and I think they're aesthetically pleasing. So has anyone else done this? And the answer is yes. The city of Newburyport recently took a former school, the Kelly School Building, and converted it to the Newburyport Rec Center. And they utilize the gym almost daily by the neighborhood and the community at large. They also designated a significant portion of the former school grounds for public purposes as a park and playground space, and it's going to be retained for public use in perpetuity. This is an example from the Newburyport Rec Center of what they do. People can go online and they can reserve areas. They can reserve the rec room, the art room, the gym, the preschool room. So it's really, truly a community place. The funding for the operation comes from grants, donations, and user fees, and less than a third of the operating budget comes from tax dollars. This is not in Massachusetts, but it was another example. The city of Darlington in Wisconsin obtained a $500,000 community development block grant from the federal government to convert a middle school into a multifunctional community building. And it's now a multifunctional facility. It includes city hall, police department, county offices, a senior center, a fitness center, and a daycare center. The town manager just today talked about the town of Orange and what they've done. So there are other communities in Massachusetts doing this. So how do we pay for it? Well, there's a whole bunch of grants that are available. The Farmers Market Promotion Program, the goal of that program is to increase domestic consumption of and access to locally grown agricultural products. It's administered by the United States Department of Agriculture. Unfortunately, we missed the deadline, but obviously there's a lot of work to do before we get into that. Another grant program that's available is the Massachusetts Food Venture Program. that supports the renovation of a commercial community. It's a grant program intended to address food access and expansion of economic opportunities. My thought is this is an ideal place for the cafeteria. The town of Lancaster recently received almost $125,000 to renovate a commercial community kitchen for the World Farmers Organization. The Community Development Block Grant eligible projects include, but are not limited to, housing rehabilitation, infrastructure, public facilities, services planning, removal of architectural barriers to allow access by persons with disabilities, which I think would be applicable in the TCP, and that's available to communities with a population of under 50,000. Mass Cultural Facilities Fund provides resources for cultural facilities, which would be this building, if we include the artisan component, to flourish and promotes the development of cultural facilities that contribute to the economic lives of the community. Worcester recently received $225,000 for expansion and accessibility at the American Antiquarian Society, and Bolton received $96,000 for the construction of a performance pavilion. Economic Development Fund, this has a lot of facets to it and a lot of opportunity. It finances projects and programs that create and/or retain jobs, improve the local and/or regional tax base, or otherwise enhance the quality of life in the community. Grants are available from $100,000 to $750,000 for downtown and commercial center revitalization. And I did list the different grants that are available, but I won't go into those in the interest of time. I think that's it, right?
It is.
So that's it. So that's my thought. I think green space is important, and I think that enhancing our community, I do believe that building reuse is tied to economic development because I think it can be the catalyst.
Thank you.
I didn't make quite an impressive presentation as Paula, but I did write down my ideas if we're running through our ideas. A lot of it's the same as hers, so. Again, for Town Hall, my thought was moving the town offices to Passios is the best idea for all the reasons that Paula listed. Possible future uses for Town Hall through land lease or rental, because obviously there's concerns that people don't want to give up control over the building, but we could potentially lease it to the farmers co-op if there's actually an interest of the farmers in town, or artists' work and gallery space. Also, the idea of the collaborative workspace. That's a big business. I mean, WeWork is one company, it's international. There's spaces in every major city in the world, and it's certainly a revenue-generating enterprise that a tenant could run within this building to do renovations themselves and have it be, have the cost taken off the town. For the Ritter building, again, moving the offices out of there, my thoughts would be to, number one, use parking over the primary school site to support the future use of the Ritter building. I believe those two sites are very important to one another. And again, there's obvious concerns about the future of that building, so trying to work through land lease or rental. I like the idea of the farm-to-table restaurant, trying to write into the lease the minimum use of local goods. A lot of people have said they'd like to see a brew pub there. And again, that site, those two sites, the Ritter and the primary, are more to me than just the two buildings that are there, because there's also the public safety building that's now gone, and it leaves the Verizon building plain as day site for anyone standing in the middle of town, and it's not an attractive building. So I think that the potential to use that existing pad site to, do a land lease on that to get somebody to build a new facility there, that's attractive, that meets our zoning bylaws, that kind of creates a gateway to School Street, a gateway to the Historical Society, would be, rent from that could help improve that site and again take the burden off of the town. The Passios campus, again, I really agree with what Paula was saying about having that being a community campus. I was accidentally just happened to go down there this weekend at the same time they're having the Little League parade, and there were hundreds of kids, either you're playing soccer on the fields to gathering at Kids Kingdom for the parade to start, and it was just a great community space for those things to happen. Building up that campus, kind of reworking that island in front of the building and making that the community gathering space. It's visible. People can appreciate the activity that's going on there. It makes a connection between the school and the library and the center of town and all the other parks that are going on there. I really think that that's the place that a new park should be if we're going to do that. Again, as far as paying for any project down at that campus, assume would be an upfront cost to the taxpayer moving our town offices there, but hopefully utilizing the excess space to find tenants that could offset the maintenance costs of the larger building would be my hope. And again, the old primary site, demolishing the building that's there and putting parking to support all the uses of the village district, because the way the zoning's written, if you have a use but you don't have the parking on your site, you can lease space from another property. So businesses in town could realistically lease parking spaces from the town to allocate towards their business, so that could partially pay for it. And again, rearranging that area and potentially making a pocket park or a square in front of the Historic Society to kind of highlight that building as a feature in the center of town. I think that would be a good use for that area. And again, it's a large site. Probably don't need all of it for parking. Potentially another small, pad site that meets the village zoning. I'm abundantly confident that our village zoning protects us against any unwanted use. So
What's a pocket park?
it's just a smaller,
Small little park.
park, square, something in front of the building, flagpole, benches, trees.
Oh, cute. Almost like the Veterans Memorial Park.
Right.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah. And again, taking Brooks House down and using that as a gateway to the new campus. Trees, benches, green gathering space. Whether it's taxpayer funded or some community fundraising effort to do something like that, I see that as ways to pay for it.
We are on the same page, I think.
Pretty close.
Anybody else?
So I didn't get down to this level, but I support the town hall at the Passios, Ritter reuse for active reuse. I'm not I don't necessarily believe that demolishing the primary school or the Brooks House is a consensus in the town. I'm going to do a caution on that. I'm leaning towards it, or reuse of the Brooks House someplace else. But what I've seen over the last month and a half is a lot of people wanting to do something different. Now, that's fine until we actually have to start paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing I would say on that. I like the idea of keeping the buildings under town control for the Ritter and the town hall and the Passios. But I'm open to doing other things with the other properties.
Yeah, or is there any possibility the old primary could become housing? Is it just too far gone for that?
So,
I mean, because housing isn't mentioned here anywhere,
So subsidized housing is probably not going to happen because it would be so expensive per unit to do that, and you would be waiting forever to get it, but you never know. Market rate housing, it's always a possibility depending on what they do, if they go to the shell of the building as opposed to building something else. Again, it gets down to the price.
And I think even the proposal that's long since gone, previously, they were expanding upon the footprint to make that viable. I don't think a housing project within the footprint that's there.
I agree. Yeah.
works.
Right. And the key, I think Damon said this, and I feel strongly this way, is I think that at least a portion of that site has to be, if we're going to repurpose the Ritter, has to be available for parking, because the Ritter has such limited parking opportunities.
But we haven't done like a parking study, because I think there's more parking there than we realize.
Where, at the Ritter?
At the Ritter?
No,
Not for a
if you do a
restaurant.
change of use and try to use a restaurant or something like that, you need
Just
100
for
spaces.
Just for
Yeah.
staff
Just-
alone.
Yeah, you
That's
would
part of
be
the issue.
consumed.
So the question becomes, how far, you have the employees parked far away, and you do have enough space for whoever's left? And that, we could just even just look at our zoning bylaw and say, you know, you can just look at Asian
It's
Imperial.
by
There's
per
not
table.
There's
It's
not
per
enough parking
table.
there, because it becomes a popular place, so therefore,
Right.
if you have a bar and, you know, everybody shows up after work and everybody drives individually, so parking will continue to be an issue.
My thought on one thing I didn't mention during my presentation was parking for town hall. You know, I know that right now the Boys and Girls Club is utilizing the parking area from 3 to 5 that was built for the municipal use. Personally, I think that if we were able to move to the TCP and do the green space, I think that, you know, they're using it as a playground, basically. And by constructing that green space in close proximity, I think it opens up the parking could then be utilized by town hall.
The other thing, I was at the library trustees, and I raised what we were going to be discussing. They're concerned about losing the parking behind the Brooks House, because that's used for a lot of their big events.
Right.
So it just may be a matter of
But it- but-
redesigning
right,
the
but there would be
parking closer to
municipal,
the
right, but
library.
there would be municipal parking
Across the street.
across the street, you know, next to the skate park. So there would be another parking area, a new parking area adjacent to the municipal offices.
You have to consider how far people are willing to walk.
You know what?
What's
We're
the-
trying to
that's the-
create a
I know,
walkable,
I-
walkable community.
I don't
We're
wanna
trying
be-
to get them to walk.
I don't want to be a downer on this type of thing. We just need to be just realistic and just put that into the considerations, not to say, I don't want to be this and no on any of this. So, that's me.
I think we're more similar than apart, and I think that I could get behind either Paula or Damon's, or a combination of the two. And so instead of repeating it, I think I'd just like to tweak a couple of things or make some additional comments, if you will. I like a lot of what Paula said about a community campus and the kind of the main street from the library down Memorial Drive, et cetera. I think we're going to find that as we address the parking at what's currently town center, and whatever reuse we do with these buildings, I think we're going to find that town center shifts more towards the senior center in that part of town. Having raised my family in Pepperell before I moved to Lunenburg, I appreciate the open space, but I also want to bring up a point. The town field in Pepperell that we talk about has the gazebo and the town field, but it's really part of the baseball field's Varnum Brook campus.
Right.
And I think one of the things, one of the paradigm changes we have to work on is not to view all the school fields as being separate from what we call town fields. And, you know, I know there's scheduling nightmares and everything else, but if you look at, and I like your visual, if you look at the green space from 2A all the way up to the high school, and you consider that all green space, there's a lot of things you can use it for. And if you begin to think that the center of town shifts towards that direction, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I could get behind everything that was said here tonight. The one caution I say is that, having been part of the Building Reuse Committee, when we can have preferences and we can put out requests with guidelines. I think our protections are built in. I agree with Damon that the protections are built in. I also think we have to keep an open mind that if there is not a response to a long-term lease, or there's not a response to a farmer crafter, perhaps a broader approach to museum or artists or performing arts or something, perhaps a purchase as opposed to a lease, if it went to town meeting and with a good plan and the town agreed to it, has to be at least a possibility, as opposed to starting with it just never is going to happen. And I also, the final point I'll make is that right from the beginning, I've always said that you really can't make a good decision around either the old primary space or the Ritter space without considering what you're going to do with the other one. Because of the proximity and the parking and the, you know, and when the good idea hits us for one of them, it'll drive a lot of what's possible with the other one.
Exactly, exactly. I agree with everything you said, except I think it's important because of the historical significance of this building.
Oh.
I do think that we lease it versus
I believe
sell
we're
it.
over that hurdle. I think that we want to do whatever we can to utilize this building in a way that the town can be proud of. All right, I don't want to keep this building if it's going to be empty. I don't think that's appropriate.
Right. And my hope is that we can do something like an artist or farmers collaborative.
I'd like to revisit I would love this historical society to revisit if they could have some interest in it.
How are they going to afford to do this? They don't have the money.
Yeah, they don't have the money to do it.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I definitely agree with using the patios for town offices. I think that really is the place to do it. And I like the whole community center that you speak of. I just caution that it has to be something we can afford.
Right, and that's why I talked about the grants. I mean, my thought process is the way we have to approach this is first we have to agree as a board on a concept to be presented. And then get feedback from the community. Are you in favor of this or you're not? And then once we determine, okay, this is a good idea, the farmers and the artisans are buy-in, because if they don't, you don't go anywhere.
Right.
And then if the community is in supportive of that, then we go forward with grant funding and financing. And I know Heather's going to talk a little bit about costs, but there are opportunities out there. But first you have to define what it is that you want to do.
And you sort of have to take it one step at a time. You have to decide what are you going to do first. And, you
have to prioritize it. But
you might never get to the last one. You have to really start with, what's feasible, what's affordable, what makes the most sense. Moving the town offices is logically like a first thing to do because everything, the people are in this building and that building, moving them to one building kind of feels like the first thing to do.
I agree that you have to have a priority, but I also think, and this is why I'm not in favor of the article to relocate the Brooks, although I think that's part of the long-term plan, or put a park in at the primary, because I personally believe we have to have a long-range plan on the 5 buildings and what our plan is overall before we start doing it piecemeal. Granted, it would be done in phases. You would have to move forward in phases, but I think it's important, and I think why the town didn't approve the last articles is there wasn't a town center plan. And I think that's important.
I agree, but I'm not sure the Brooks House is important enough to affect the plan.
Personally, I think it is, because I think incorporating a green space component to me is important. I do believe that this town could benefit from that. I would love to see the bonfire start happening again. I would love to see some of the types of events that other communities have. And right now, we really don't have a facility to do that. Granted, we do have school facilities, but they're not going to let us put a bonfire on the brand new field.
So what are you
either.
thinking about with the Brooks House? Just relocating it?
Yes. Well, ideally, if nobody wants it, then that's a whole different thing. Then you demolish it. But ideally, you try to find someone who's interested in moving it.
Yeah, it seems like that would be an easy first step, really. Or one of the first steps.
We need to come up with the goal.
Yeah,
and then we'll figure out how to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Do you have?
I have some slides as well. Yes. So this in the Google Drive is under Town Facilities Materials. Okay. So discussion topics would be, just not moving forward. Okay. The emerging consensus that I feel there's been through a series of meetings, public forums, the charrettes, the meetings we've held, and discussed town facilities. Incorporating the property condition assessments by Vertex for the old primary school, Brooks House, Town Hall, Ritter, and how this affects the overall long-term infrastructure plan. And as a result, developing a long-term plan for these buildings. So when we look at the timeline of discussion on town facilities, we've had a number of meetings since last summer. So we had a workshop in August. voted on, it may seem irrelevant, but voted on the color of the town hall, but that shows support for maintaining the building and pride in the building. November, we had another workshop on town facilities. November 21st, we had a town facilities and grounds workshop, which included parks. We had town meeting votes, multiple articles that related to town facilities. In December, we had a walking tour. On December 7th, we had a public forum. Again, on February 5th, we had a public forum. And February 13th, there was a presentation by Vertex. And at various meetings in March and April, we've discussed the annual town meeting warrant articles as they relate to facilities. And my feeling was that these public forums and through public input, a consensus has emerged with the old primary school and the Brooks House on demolishing those buildings or removing those buildings. And the two articles related to town facilities on the May 5th town meeting warrant are one, the citizens petition to demolish the old primary school, and the article I submitted to sell the Brooks House building to move off that property. So just this couple of these slides are slides I used previously when we've had town facilities discussion, just for people that are queuing in, haven't heard the whole lengthy history of discussions that we have. So old primary school was built in 1928. It's been vacant. Oh, sorry. It's not catching up. There we go. Vacant since 2005. The building sits in about 2.7 acres, and it has 12,300 square feet of space. And there's, as depicted in these pictures, it's beyond repair without a significant amount of funding. The old primary school, the property condition assessment, for each of the buildings in the property condition assessments, they were rated with a condition rating, and it's the aggregate of identified issues versus the total replacement cost. So the old primary school was rated, was 70% of the aggregate identified issues is the total of the replacement cost compared to the replacement cost. And this is rated a poor condition. The immediate repairs, excluding the allowance for the evaluation and abatement for hazardous materials of $90,000, is a total of $718,880. And the upkeep and maintenance for the next 5 years, excluding immediate repairs with inflation, is $775,260. With an additional $73,501 for general ADA improvements.
What do we
Wait a minute,
spend
go
on
back
it now?
on upkeep and maintenance for the next 5 years. What is that? That's
That
not what we're
was-
spending now. That's if,
The upkeep and maintenance, that in the plan, it identified immediate repairs and it gave a 5-year plan.
okay, to maintain, if you wanted to upgrade it. and
Yes.
maintain it.
What do we
Okay,
spend on it
okay.
now?
$1,000.
$1,000 a year.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
that's what I was thinking,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
about that, right?
Okay. So the recommendation that I would provide for the old primary school would be to perform the abatement of hazardous materials in phases. The identified $308,000, that's the estimate given in the Vertex report, and the cost of demolition through a capital planning process starting in fiscal '20, and develop a plan and cost estimate for the final use of that property. We could prepare the asbestos and lead operations maintenance plan and comprehensive demolition survey using funds remaining in the facilities budget by the end of fiscal '18, depending on what's remaining, or appropriate funds at the fall special town meeting for this cost. This would eliminate the current and future costs to reuse the existing building, and the space can be repurposed. We could create a green space or other purpose that is identified at town meeting. It would create space for municipal parking that is lacking in town center that can be shared with the Historical Society. So the Brooks House, just a summary of that building. Sorry, my slides aren't shifting. It was built in 1870, currently houses the school facilities director's office and provides storage space for the school. The Lunenburg Ledger moved out of the rented space in March, and this is approximately 1 acre with 2,000 square feet of office space. The property condition assessment, it gave a rating. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Are we there yet? There we go. Gave a facility condition rating of poor with the aggregate of identified issues at 16% of the total replacement cost. The immediate repairs, excluding hazardous materials, at $75,048. And the 5-year plan in Vertex for the maintenance would be $169,408. That's with inflation, with an additional $44,653 for general ADA improvements.
And again, what does that cost us a year?
Approximately $6,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oop, went too fast. Sorry. The recommendation for the Brooks House would be to dispose of the building through a RFP process that would sell the building to be moved off the property and retain the land as municipal land. We could reuse the land as green space or in a community gathering spot. And this would eliminate the necessity to maintain and upkeep a building that has minimal use now, but retains, that shouldn't be retains a historic building, retains a historic building within the community if it was moved within the community. And this eliminates the immediate costs identified in the building condition assessment and long-term costs that are no longer being offset by rental income, because the rental income we received was approximately the cost to operate that building. The town hall is built in the 1830s and currently houses 7 municipal departments. It's a meeting hall for various boards, commissions, public functions. We have approximately 15 full-time employees that work out of the town hall, not including the senior work-off workers, registrars in the town clerk's office, the cable videographers that film the meetings, and the various boards and commissions and committees that meet in the second floor meeting room, or the board of assessors that meet in the assessor's office. The town does not own the parking behind the building, and the on-street parking is not very conducive to the public or staff that needs to cross a busy main street, and public meetings cause use of parking in the neighboring business parking spots. A town hall should be more accessible to the public and be a safe place to work. So the property condition assessment, the rating was also a poor rating, and the aggregate was of the identified issues is 12% of the total replacement costs. The immediate repairs totaled $37,066. The long-term 5-year costs were $148,744, with an additional $3,092 for general ADA improvements. I believe the ADA improvements identified, I think it is more far-reaching than that. It could be much more accessible. And the operational costs for this building are approximately $41,000. And are partially offset by the 31,000, I think it is, that we take in through the cell equipment lease agreement.
Now, the ADA requirements would be required no matter what the building's used for. Is that correct?
If you
Yes.
change the use of the building.
Yes. Over a certain square footage, I believe it kicks into. Damon might know that number.
Yeah, if you change the use, then
Change the use, you have to come in.
then you pretty much have to bring it, well, to the extent feasible, and then there's a whole process of arguing what the extent feasible is, but again, it's you bring it into code compliance technically, but not making it
Fully
actually an accessible building. There's two different things, so.
So accessibility is not a showstopper to another purpose?
Right, again, I think the town has a responsibility and a burden to put its offices in a building that's fully accessible.
Yes, right.
Some other use doesn't clearly have the same responsibility to do that level of modification.
Accessibility, right.
Okay.
The recommendation for Town Hall would be to retain ownership of the building and perform the immediate repairs to the building to maintain the integrity of the building, to incorporate the larger projects identified in the Vertex report into the 5-year capital plan, and incrementally increase the facility's operating budget so there is sufficient funds in the budget to do annual maintenance projects. By retaining ownership, revenue from the cell equipment will continue to offset annual maintenance costs and keeps the town-owned communications equipment that's located in the attic at this location. Explore the use of the space for collaborative workspace or other community nonprofit groups. The Ritter Building, located at 960 Mass Ave. It's built in 1910 with an addition built in 1963. Currently houses 5 town departments, the state representative's office, Friends of the Seniors office, storage, 2 meeting rooms for various committees, and is on about 1.1 acres and 6,000 square feet of office space. There are about 9 full-time town employees there that work out of the Ritter, and is meeting space for various buildings, so it's more than just the full-time staff that's there. The property condition assessment for the Ritter Building identified the rating also for this building as poor, with the identified issues as 28% of the total replacement costs. The immediate repairs, excluding the hazardous materials evaluation of $133,500 for a total of $35,019 for immediate repairs, and long-term over 5 years repairs of $272,872 with an additional $1,779 for general ADA improvements. And the operational costs for this building were approximately $28,000.
Again, from the ADA numbers from Vertex are, again, bring it to code compliance, not
accessible.
not accessible.
Right.
Full
Not-
accessibility.
Yes. Yep. And that's all the property condition assessment slides. It's numbers from those reports. The recommendation for the Ritter Building would be to retain ownership. Sorry. Of the building and perform the immediate repairs to the building to maintain the integrity of the building, keep the historic exterior of the building and unique architecture it brings to town center, look at ways to address the parking by incorporating adjacent town property on the old primary lot, incorporate the larger projects identified in the Vertex report into the 5-year capital plan, and incrementally increase the facility's operating budget so there is sufficient funds in the budget to do annual maintenance projects, and explore a lease of the space for collaborative workspace, a farmer's co-op, or other use that would benefit the community. The TC Passios was built in 1952. It's used for district offices, IT office space, no longer the ACE program. Special services, the food manager, PAC, and the gym is used by various community groups. And in the, we were exploring looking at renting for kitchen space. Right now, we also have the Crocker Elementary School located there until the end of the school year. And that operational cost in fiscal 17 was $61,000. So the current operational cost for this fiscal year and next fiscal year are covered by the income that we have been receiving through both the Crocker and PAC and everything through these 2 fiscal years. So it's offset currently. The property condition assessment for this building gave it a rating of poor with the aggregate of identified issues at 26% of the total replacement costs. The immediate repairs, excluding abatement of $755,500 for a total of $30,432. A 5-year upkeep and maintenance plan of $2,932,253. An additional $7,153 for general ADA improvements of the space.
That $3 million seems awfully high. What does that consist of?
I believe I would have to look at the report. It was, but it probably identified the roof because that's needs to be repaired, and windows. Do you have that number?
And it also, I thought it also included,
Yeah,
Didn't it
replace
include some
windows,
partitions
replace
for
roof,
office?
and central air.
okay. I'm sorry, say that again?
The replacement of windows at $750,000, replacement of the roof for $680,000, and must be installed central air, so affect the HVAC system for $600,000.
So if we only used part of it for town offices, we probably wouldn't have to replace the windows for the whole building at once, right?
We could look at, yeah, that would be something worth exploring.
I would think you could certainly phase a project.
Right, right.
So my recommendation for the TC Passios is to proceed with the conceptual design of moving town offices from Town Hall, the Ritter Building, and reserving space for the Veterans Officer, who's currently located at the Eagle House, because right now his office is on a second floor office space, not...
And it's not accessible.
No, not accessible. The school central offices, the cable studio, and space for community use. By renovating the TC Passios for this purpose, we will absorb the identified costs that are needed to maintain and upkeep that building, and we would get a fully accessible building with updated HVAC, electrical, and mechanical systems. This would require authorization to borrow for final design and construction costs for a long-term note.
And there's also the consideration that the Boys and Girls Club could come in and take another piece of this building, right?
Yes, I think that's it's very well good, something to explore, as well as, and I touched on, I think on the next slide, is leasing space to a quasi-municipal or quasi-school agency that would complement town departments and be a
But then you'd have to
resource.
fix the windows on the other
Right.
side. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
right.
trade.
But as Damon said, you can do it in a phased
Right,
approach.
absolutely,
Phased approach.
absolutely.
And would the Boys and Girls Club then have a vacant building that we'd have to do?
It's like
But
dominoes.
that's absolutely set up for a single-family home.
It could be a
I mean,
home,
it could
right,
be
you
a
could
home.
sell it.
I mean, if you go in, you walk in, and there's a
Although that's-
kitchen, and then
that's
there's, you know.
not a current use allowed by the APDC as new ones, is it?
No, Bob's right.
Encouraging density as opposed to a single-family home.
You have to do something on the first floor and put a
Right.
unit up above.
Well, that's unfortunate, because the kitchen's already there. But anyway, that's it.
So to recap, for a long-term plan for these buildings, the old primary school recommend demolition and inclusion on the capital plan for cost of asbestos, abatement of asbestos and hazardous materials and demolition. And this could be green space, enough area for municipal parking. or potential site for mixed-use development as determined by town meeting. The Brooks House convey the building through a RFP process that would retain municipal land to be used as green space and a community gathering spot. The town hall retain town ownership of the building for collaborative workspace or community use purposes, and this would keep the communications lease, which will offset operational costs. The Ritter retain town ownership of the building to lease for a farming co-op or restaurant that will retain the historic quality that adds character to the town center and supports local business. And we would need to address the parking requirements of change of use. The TC Passios proceed with the conceptual design plan to co-locate all the town offices currently in the Town Hall and Ritter building and provide space for the cable studio, central offices, and storage. Another essential need for the town, because we have zero storage in this building now, too. Explore use of the other wing for community use and/or rental space for a quasi-municipal or school agency. The economic development opportunities with the Town Hall and Ritter building, I believe these spaces are an opportunity for the town, and to tie into the discussion we've been having on economic development. This would provide space for small business owners, craftsmen, artisans, to use as a makerspace or collaborative workspace. And something I heard today at that summit I went to is investing in our local people. And I think that's something we could achieve by using this space for that purpose. So that's all I have.
You know, I like a lot of these recommendations, but I don't agree with demolishing the old primary school until we know what we're going to do with that land.
I think that's why, I agree with all, and I think we all have said basically the same thing. But I think first, and as I said before, relative to this article, I think we have to have a plan that the community can get behind. Because I think they are contingent upon each other. And my thought is, I think that this board needs to present the plan and determine whether or not the townspeople support that, and then try to move forward and put forward the steps to achieve that plan. But first we have to have consensus on the plan.
And then you've really got to have kind of an estimate of what it's going to cost.
Oh, absolutely. You have to, absolutely.
That's a key part of the plan.
Once you have the plan, then you can determine how the dominoes fall. I mean,
Right.
clearly, most people think the primary school should be demolished, but
I don't think that's clear.
well, but
Certainly the people who came to the charrettes felt that way.
and the people who've done the economic analysis on it, on what it's going to cost the town to reuse it. But my point being, if that's going to get knocked down, does spending the money on that first help us accomplish the goal properly?
Exactly.
Is that
That's
the
the key.
right first domino to fall?
Exactly, is the prioritization of how to achieve and what the process is going to be to the end goal, I think is key. And identifying the prioritization of the spending is also a key component.
Right, because you don't want to demolish that and then find out that's all the money you got.
Right, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
Dead in the water.
But I'll volunteer to, if you all think it's a good idea, to take these recommendations and thoughts and put them in a graphic form so we can present it to the town if we think we're at sounds like we kind of have a direction that I could draw. I mean, if we want to do that, I'll do it. I don't want to force it on anyone. I'm not trying to push my idea on anyone. I'm trying to utilize what the recommendations are.
I would suggest that to do that work, to bring to us and tweak,
Right.
to then bring to the town is worth the effort, I would
Yeah, I would
suggest.
think so. Like
I
it's
would
the fall
agree.
town meeting.
Well,
agree.
let's get started next month.
Sort
you
of
know.
some public forum before that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
No, I would agree wholeheartedly. The other thing, I think that, if we do have buy-in, and I think the town manager has recommended this before, is the potential of an economic development committee. And we talked about that when we met with the AgCom. And I think it's really a partnership of the AgCom and the Economic Development Committee. But I hope that this board will create an economic development committee. because I think that's going to be an important group that could help advance these ideas and assist with moving forward.
Okay. I think we've accomplished what we can for this evening, but I think it also sets up, when we talk about our goals for next year, it sets up pretty much what's going to take most of our time, I would think.
I agree.
All righty. Our upcoming meeting schedule, just remind everybody that this Saturday, May 5th, is the annual town meeting. Election Day is for local boards and committees is May 19th, and that this board will meet regularly on Tuesday evenings, May 8, 15, and 22. Is there any public comment from the public?
Hi, good evening. Katie Adams from Williams Drive. I just have a couple small public comments. One was on Article 26, just simply that it's a citizen petition article and you unanimously endorsed it. I like consistency. I think a couple weeks ago when Mr. Passios presented his article, you stated you don't usually endorse citizen petition articles, but the rolling paper is a citizen petition article. In regards to all of the plans we talked about tonight here at the building workshop, there's one component that for me is really, really missing, and that is talking about some of the most key municipal concerns I would have, and that's schools, future school land, future school needs. When you're talking about the school campus, we've really got to think about future school builds, future school rebuilds, if the high school would need an addition. And then I couldn't help but say what I've worked on most since I've started getting involved in town government is student safety and security. And that's not something that's ever going to go away, and it's something that's going to become more complex and dynamic. And I've had lengthy meetings and lengthy conversations about the concept that a restrictive environment is a safer environment. And as it relates to a school, there's never going to be a situation where reducing the amount of restriction you have in the space is going to improve the outcomes for safety. And that's a public safety viewpoint for anything. If you can restrict an area, it's a safer area. Bringing, I wrote down the word, but bringing this sort of town campus into the school campus could have a lot of really serious unintended consequences. And I think that all has to be flushed out before you permanently bring density into a space that I really think belongs to the future of the schools. Thank you.
Hi, Rhonda Licio, 181 Reservoir Road. I just wanted to comment on Mr. Luck's presentation earlier and start out by saying I appreciate that the town manager has prioritized public safety needs, because I felt in previous years they were grossly neglected. And I also appreciate that there is a plan to address the staffing deficit going forward. But I feel when a low-impact solution to a critical public safety service becomes available, it would be a disservice to our residents to be so rigid that we have to stick to our plans. And I, for one, applaud Mr. Luck's work and creativity in addressing this need. And it could affect any resident at any time. And my in-laws are seniors and they live in this town. So it's important to me personally. They do not utilize town services. I would say the one they utilize the most is driving on the roads. They don't attend the senior center. They don't. But one service they have had to utilize, unfortunately, is the ambulance service. And I would like to also note that their taxes are in excess of $9,000 a year. So I feel the need to speak out on their behalf, my family's behalf, on this issue. And I also hope the town approves it regardless of what the board and committee recommendations are. And finally, I'd like to mention that public outreach has been a long-standing agenda item on this board's agenda. but I repeatedly hear board members express frustration toward, and at times even chastising, members of the public who come forward to act on an area of special interest. And I feel this is allowed in our form of government. I think it should be embraced, especially when a creative idea like Mr. Lux comes along. And I feel having this item on the agenda and the increase in the number of residents who have come forward to have their special interests addressed, I feel that's like a contradiction, a conflict. It indicates to me that maybe there's a disconnect here between what the town and the boards and committees are doing and what really is important to people. So I would hope that would be addressed. And I attend, record, and watch almost every, do one of those things for all meetings across the board. And I even sometimes have trouble determining when the appropriate time to intervene into a process is. So I can't imagine it's easy for the average person. So that's all I have to say on that. And then I just had a question on the buildings. The municipal buildings that you showed, were those also on an active school campus, or were they separate?
I can't tell you the proximity. I honestly don't know.
Okay, I was just curious.
But I do want to point out, as far as the school campus idea, is the school did give the TCP to the town. So I want to be clear that when we talk about the school campus, the TCP is not part of that campus.
I was just thinking of location, distance. That was my concern.
And I don't know.
Okay.
I can't answer that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any public comment from the board?
Yeah, I'm not trying to start a discussion or back and forth, but would reiterate that we did go to the school committee, and they did say that they do not need the Passios property for any future use. They have the space to do it elsewhere. And just comment that I don't want my kid going to school in a prison. My thought is, and it's proven that more eyes on a public space makes it a safer space. So more activity and more life makes a safer space to me.
Move we adjourn?
I'm sorry. We've closed the public comment.
I didn't realize that you had closed it.
Yeah, well, I did. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.